The voicemail icon glowed on my phone screen like a tiny, persistent wound. I stared at it from my kitchen island, the granite cold under my palms. Outside, New York glittered with indifferent evening lights. The message was from my mother. Left 3 hours ago. Her voice, a study in measured tension, played in the silence of my apartment. Clara. Honey. Just checking you're all packed. Isabel is a wreck. The florist called about the peonies. And you know how she gets. Call me when you land tomorrow. And remember. Sweetheart. This weekend is about her. Let's just keep the peace. Okay. For the family. I deleted the message. The silence that followed was heavier. My suitcase stood by the door. A sleek, expensive thing Mark had bought me for a trip to Milan that never happened. I was halfway through zipping it shut when my phone buzzed again. This time, a FaceTime call. Isabel's face, framed by artfully tousled blonde waves and a silk headband, filled the screen. You're not dressed yet? She said by way of greeting, her eyes scanning the territory behind me for the flight. It's a 2-hour trip to Connecticut. Izzy. Not the Met Gala. It sets the tone. She chirped. Her smile bright and brittle. Mindset is everything. Are you bringing the blue Valentino? The one with the lace, the one you borrowed for the Hamptons and returned with a champagne stain? No, her smile didn't falter. But her eyes tightened at the corners. That was an accident. And I paid for the cleaning. You sent me a gift card to a bakery. It was a nice bakery. She leaned closer. The screen blurring for a second. I'm just nervous. Clara. Everything has to be perfect. Daniel's parents are so traditional. And his colleagues from the firm will be there. All the partners. It's a wedding. Not a merger. I said. But my voice lacked its usual edge. The fatigue was already seeping in. A dull ache behind my eyes. It's my wedding. She corrected. A petulant note creeping in. The biggest day of my life. You wouldn't understand. I guess. Your courthouse thing with Mark was so simple. There it was. The first gentle probe. It had been 3 years since the divorce. But in my family's lexicon, my marriage was still the benchmark for failure. A simple courthouse ceremony followed by a complicated dissolution. It was what it was. I said flatly, turning to fold a sweater. And this will be what it is. A beautiful, overpriced, peony-filled spectacle. You'll be stunning. Daniel will cry. Mom will overdramatize. It'll be fine. He will cry. Won't he? She mused, her expression softening for a moment with genuine affection. It was a look I rarely saw anymore. One that belonged to the little girl who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. God. I hope the band knows the exact version of the first dance song. I sent them the link. Like 5 times. What if they play the radio edit? The intro is wrong. They won't play the radio edit. Izzy, you don't know that. You have to micromanage. Or people will disappoint you. She sighed. A dramatic, weight of the world exhalation. Speaking of, you're still okay to handle the seating chart tweaks tomorrow morning? Before the rehearsal? The Carmichaels are divorcing. And we can't seat them together. But if we move Uncle Frank, it pisses off Aunt Susan. Anne. I'll handle it. I cut her off. I have the file. I'll be at the venue by 10. You're a lifesaver. Honestly. What would I do without you? The question hung in the digital space between us. It was meant to be rhetorical. A sisterly compliment. But in the silence that followed, it felt like an accusation. She blinked. Okay. I have to go. My moisturizing mask is hardening. Love you, love you. 2. The screen went black. I placed the phone face down on the counter. The silence of my apartment, usually a sanctuary, felt cavernous. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. pressing my forehead against the cool glass. My reflection stared back. A woman in her mid-30s, with the same chestnut hair as our mother but worn longer. Messier. Shadows under eyes that had learned to be cautious. My own wedding felt like a lifetime ago. Not simple. Isabel. Rushed. Mark and I. Two ambitious kids in love with the idea of building a fortress against the world. We'd built it. All right. Then we'd taken up residence in separate, lonely wings. The infidelity, when I discovered it, was almost a relief. It gave a name to the silence. The divorce was a clinical, expensive unraveling. He got the penthouse. I got this apartment and a thriving interior design business. He got his freedom. I got this. A quiet life. A successful one. By most metrics. Yet here I was, the day before my little sister's wedding, feeling like I was preparing for a tour of duty. My phone buzzed again. A text. This time. Mia, packing panic or preemptive regret? Need me to fake a family emergency? I have a cousin with a questionable shellfish allergy on standby. A real smile touched my lips. Mia Rodriguez. My best friend since Parsons and now my business partner. She was the one person who knew the unvarnished truth about my marriage. My family. The whole damn mess. Me. I'm a grown woman. I can handle my sister's wedding, Mia. That's what I'm afraid of. You handle things until you explode. Remember the gala of 2019? I did. I'd handled a client's last-minute demand for puce-colored napkins until I'd thrown a sampler at a wall. The stain was still there. Behind a potted ficus. Me. I'll be the picture of serenity. A bastion of supportive sisterhood. Mia, now you're scaring me. Call me when you land. And Clara. Trust your gut. If something feels off. It probably is. Her words lingered. If something feels off. Everything felt off. The forced cheer. The weight of expectation. The ghost of my own marital wreckage hovering at the periphery of a celebration of eternal love. And Daniel. Always Daniel Shaw. My college boyfriend for 9 months in what felt like a previous geological era. It had been intense. Youthful. And ended not with a bang but a mutual, relieved sigh. We wanted different things. I wanted a career. A life in the city that felt like my own. He wanted a partner for the track his life was already on. Law school. Partnership. A house in Greenwich that looked like every other house in Greenwich. We parted as friends. Or so I'd thought then. 5 years ago. He'd reappeared. At a charity auction our parents dragged us to. He was with Isabel. Her hand tucked possessively in the crook of his arm. She'd beamed. Look. Clara. Your sloppy seconds turned out pretty good. I'd forced a laugh. Daniel had looked uncomfortable. Isabel. He chided softly. What? It's a joke. Clara knows it's a joke. Right. Clara, I'd known it wasn't. Not entirely. The way she looked at him. It was equal parts adoration and triumph. She'd won a prize I'd discarded. But the fact that I'd had it first mattered. It always had. The relationship had moved with startling speed. Engagement in a year. Now. The wedding. Mom and Dad were over the moon. Daniel was perfect. Stable. Successful. From a good family. A far cry from Mark. With his hedge fund volatility and roving eye. Daniel was safe. Daniel was the antidote to my mistake. I finished packing. My movements automatic. The blue Valentino was in the back of my closet. I didn't pack it. The flight to Connecticut the next morning was short and turbulent. My father picked me up from the private air terminal. A concession to Isabel's no commercial travel during wedding week decree. Dad looked older. The lines on his face deeper than they'd been at Christmas. Clara. Good flight, it was fine. Dad. He loaded my bag into the trunk of his Lexus. The drive to the family home in New Canaan was quiet. Filled with NPR's gentle murmur. Finally. He cleared his throat. Your mother, she's under a lot of stress. We all want this to go smoothly for Isabel. I know. Dad. She's always been more sensitive than you. I looked out the window at the perfect rolling lawns. I know. So if she gets emotional or says things, you know how she is. It's her day. I turned to him. What are you asking me? Dad. To be a doormat. He flinched, his hands tightening on the wheel. I'm asking you to be her big sister. The one who makes things easier, not harder. The rest of the drive passed in silence. The house, a sprawling colonial, was a hive of activity. A delivery van for the wedding planners was in the circular drive. Mom rushed out, her Karen Millen dress immaculate, a headset dangling from one ear. Clara. Thank God. The seating chart is a nightmare. The Carmichaels. I'm on it. Mom. She kissed my cheek, her perfume a cloud of jasmine and anxiety. The files are on the desk in the sunroom. And honey, try to smile a little more. You look tense. It's a celebration. I escaped to the sunroom. For the next 2 hours, I moved names like chess pieces, negotiating the complex diplomacy of family feuds, divorced couples, and college friends who'd slept together once and now hated each other. It was a familiar logic puzzle, and I lost myself in it. Grateful for the mental distraction, Isabel found me there. She was a vision in a white silk robe, her hair in curlers, a mimosa in hand. She surveyed my work. You moved the Henderson cousins to table 9? Near the bathroom. They're 22. They'll spend half the night outside smoking anyway. It gets them away from Great-Aunt Muriel, who thinks their tattoos are a sign of the apocalypse. A reluctant smile touched her lips. Fine. Smart. She perched on the edge of the desk, sipping her drink. Thanks for doing this. Really. It's fine. No. I mean it. You're good at this. The practical stuff. The messy details. She swirled her glass. I'm not. I just want the beautiful result. You're good at making things work behind the scenes. It was the closest she'd come to a genuine compliment in years. Someone has to be. I said lightly. She studied me, her gaze sharp. Are you okay? With all of this? With Daniel, the question, direct and unvarnished, surprised me. Why wouldn't I be? She shrugged. I don't know. Ancient history and all that. But sometimes I wonder if you know, regret it. Letting him go. I put down my pen. Izzy. Daniel and I dated for 9 months over a decade ago. We were kids. There's nothing to regret. I'm happy for you. Truly. She searched my face, looking for a crack, an insincerity. Finding none. She seemed to relax. I believe you. It's just weird sometimes how life works out. You and Mark, it was so sad how that ended, and there it was. The pivot. My failure laid gently next to her triumph. It was what it was. I repeated my mantra. He was such a jerk. But you were so distant. Near the end, I remember visiting, and the two of you were like polite strangers. Maybe if you'd tried harder. A hot spike of anger shot through me. Isabel. Don't. She held up a hand. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean. I just hate that you were hurt. And now, you're here. And you're alone. And I'm getting everything. Her eyes shimmered with sudden, theatrical tears. I just want you to be as happy as I am. The performance was flawless. The loving, concerned sister, burdened by her own good fortune. I knew the script. I was supposed to reassure her. Tell her not to worry about me. That her happiness was all that mattered. I was saved by my mother's harried entrance. Isabel. There you are. The makeup artist is waiting. And we have to be at the venue in an hour for the rehearsal. Clara. Are you done? We need to leave. Done. I said, closing the laptop. I avoided my sister's gaze. The moment, fragile and strange, was over. The rehearsal was held at the Greenwich Country Club, a monument to WASP elegance and discreet wealth. The room for the ceremony overlooked a manicured golf course, the late afternoon sun painting everything in gold. Chairs were set up in perfect rows. An archway dripped with lush, unblooming greenery. I took my place as the lone bridesmaid. Isabel had chosen to have only me stand with her. Sisters before misters, she'd said with a giggle. At the time, it felt sweet. Now, standing alone at the front, facing the small assembled group of immediate family and the wedding party, I felt exposed. Daniel stood with his best man, a beefy fraternity brother named Brad who kept clapping him on the back. Daniel looked handsome, tailored, and slightly pale. He caught my eye and offered a small, tight smile. I nodded back. The rehearsal dinner was a blur of toasts and rich food. I sat between my father and Brad, who spent most of the meal explaining Bitcoin to me. I nodded politely, my eyes scanning the room. Mia was there, having driven up from the city. She caught my eye from across the table and gave me a subtle thumbs up. My anchor. The toasts began. My father's was sentimental and brief. Brad's was raunchy and too long. Then Daniel stood, tapping his glass. He spoke of fate, of finding his soulmate when he least expected it. He talked about Isabel's light, her laughter, her capacity for joy. It was a good speech, practiced, but heartfelt. Then his gaze drifted to me, and I have to thank Isabel for bringing me back into this amazing family. And Clara. He paused, raising his glass slightly in my direction. A few curious glances turned my way. For being such a steadfast friend over the years. A constant. Really setting a high bar. The words were innocuous, complimentary, even. But the way he said constant, the slight hesitation, it made my skin prickle. Isabel, beaming at his side, reached over and squeezed his hand. Her smile seemed strained after dinner, as guests mingled with brandy and cigars on the terrace. I needed air. The cloying scent of gardenias and the weight of forced merriment were suffocating. I slipped through a set of French doors leading to a smaller, secluded patio shrouded in shadows from a large oak tree. I'd just taken a deep breath of the cool night air when I heard them. Low, urgent voices from around the corner of the patio, hidden by a tall boxwood hedge. Not a good idea. It's too much. The voice was Daniel's. Strained. It's the only way to be sure. She's too resilient. This shakes the foundation. The second voice was male. Unfamiliar. With a calm, almost clinical detachment. The money is contingent on a clean break. A permanent shift in allegiance. This guarantees it, and if it backfires, Daniel hissed. It won't. The evidence is solid. The timing is perfect. Emotional crucible. She'll be too off balance to think straight. And the family, they'll believe what they want to believe. You've seen how they are with her. A chill that had nothing to do with the night air seeped into my bones. She. Who was she? The cold, calculating tone. It was about manipulation. About breaking someone. I don't like it. Daniel muttered. But the protest was weak. You don't have to like it. You just have to play your part. Tomorrow. Stick to the script. Your future depends on it. Both your futures. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Receding. I stood frozen, pressed against the cold stone wall. My heart hammering against my ribs. Evidence. Script. Tomorrow. A clean break. A permanent shift. I peeked around the corner. The patio was empty, but disappearing through a gate on the far side. I saw the back of a man. Tall. Wearing a dark overcoat. The glimpse was fleeting. But something about the set of the shoulders. The tilt of the head. It was gone before I could place it. I stumbled back into the main reception room. The noise hit me like a wall. My mother materialized. Her face flushed with wine and pleasure. There you are. We're cutting the mock cake for photos. Come on, Mom, I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. I just heard something. Outside. Daniel was talking to someone, her expression closed off. Clara. Not now. Whatever it is. It can wait. This is your sister's night. Don't start drama. I'm not starting drama. I'm telling you I heard something strange. Maybe something. Clara. Her hand gripped my arm. Firm. Her smile was still in place for the benefit of anyone watching. But her eyes were hard. Enough. This weekend is about Isabel. Whatever petty issue you have, whatever vibe you're picking up, let it go. For once in your life. Just let it go and be happy for your sister. Petty issue. Vibe. The dismissal was so complete. So absolute. It stole the breath from my lungs. She saw the conflict. The potential for disruption. And her first instinct was to silence it. To silence me. I looked over her shoulder. Across the room. Daniel was laughing with Brad. The picture of a relaxed groom. Isabel was clinging to his arm, whispering something in his ear. Her face glowing. The perfect couple. The golden future, and I was the older sister. The one with the complicated past. The divorcee. The constant. The one who picked up on vibes. The evidence is solid, the timing is perfect. A clean break. The fragments of conversation swirled in my head. A sinister puzzle. I looked at my mother's determined, placating face. I thought of Mia's text. Trust your gut. My gut was a roiling pit of ice. Fine. I heard myself say. The word hollow. Let's go cut the cake. Sunlight. The kind reserved for magazine spreads and million-dollar weddings. Streamed through the soaring stained glass windows of the country club's grand ballroom. It dappled the assembled guests in jewels of colored light. Catching on crystal flutes and diamonds. The air smelled of orange blossoms. Gardenias. And immense. Unspoken wealth. Every surface gleamed. Every smile was camera-ready. It was a confection of perfection. So sweet it made my teeth ache. From my place at the front of the room, slightly to the left of the floral-bedecked archway, I had a panoramic view of the carnage in waiting. My stomach was a hard knot. The ice from last night's overheard conversation having settled into a permanent, low-grade dread. I'd slept fitfully. The words evidence, tomorrow, clean break playing on a loop. I'd almost texted Mia. Almost called her to my room to dissect the sinister fragments. But my mother's warning, her hard eyes in the soft lighting, had stopped me. Don't start drama. So I'd dressed in the slate-grey maid-of-honor dress Isabel had chosen. Elegant. Understated. Designed to complement. Not compete. I'd had my hair and makeup done by the team. Emerging as a polished, serene version of myself. A bastion of supportive sisterhood. Just as I'd promised Mia. A liar. Just as I'd promised myself. The ceremony itself was a beautiful, empty pantomime. The string quartet played Pachelbel with aching precision. My father walked Isabel down the aisle. Her face a vision of blissful tears behind her veil. She didn't look at me as she passed. Her eyes were locked on Daniel, who stood at the altar looking, to my newly suspicious gaze. Not adoring but pale and slightly sweaty at the temples. The pastor spoke of love, fidelity, and God's eternal plan. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, full of grandiose promises that echoed hollowly in my ears. I promise to be your sanctuary. I promise to choose you. Every day, above all others. When Daniel slid the ring onto her finger, a fat, perfect diamond that caught the light and threw fractals across the ceiling, the room released a collective sigh. My mother, seated in the front row, dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. My father beamed. It was done. The reception was a masterpiece of orchestrated joy. We moved to the lavishly appointed tent on the lawn, a marvel of engineering filled with thousands of white roses and twinkling lights. A 12-piece band played swing, then transitioned seamlessly to top 40. The champagne, a vintage Krug, never stopped flowing. I performed my duties like an automaton. I smiled for the family photos, my cheek aching from the strain. I stood in the receiving line, accepting air kisses and hollow congratulations. Your sister looks beautiful. What a perfect day. You must be so happy for her. I nodded, smiled, murmured thanks. My eyes constantly scanned the crowd, looking for the man in the overcoat, for any sign of the unseen mechanism about to turn. I found Mia by the raw bar, picking at a shrimp cocktail. You look like you're at a funeral, she muttered, handing me a glass of champagne I didn't want. I feel like I'm waiting for a bomb to go off. What happened? You were weird on the phone last night. I told her, keeping my voice low beneath the swell of uptown funk. The cryptic conversation. The unknown man. My mother's dismissal. Mia's dark eyes, always so expressive, turned flat and serious. Clara. That's not a vibe. That's a threat. A planned threat. Evidence. Script. She gripped my arm. You need to leave. Now. Get in your car and drive back to the city. I can't. It would cause the very scene I'm supposed to avoid. It would prove I'm the difficult one. The drama queen. Who cares what it proves? Something is wrong. Deeply. Stomach-turningly wrong. Before I could answer, my father was tapping his fork against his crystal flute. The gentle ting-ting-ting silenced the band, stilled the chatter. It was time for toasts. My father went first, his voice thick with emotion. He spoke of Isabel as his little girl, his princess. He welcomed Daniel to the family. It was sweet, generic. Then Daniel's best man, Brad, lumbered to the makeshift podium, his speech already slurred from bourbon. He told awkward college stories that painted Daniel as a lovable lout. Stories that had Isabel's smile tightening at the corners. The crowd laughed obligingly. Then the bandleader, a sleek man in a tuxedo, took the microphone. And now, I believe the beautiful bride would like to say a few words to her new husband and her wonderful family. Polite applause. Isabel stood, a vision in silk and lace. She accepted the microphone, her eyes shining with fresh tears. She looked at Daniel, her expression one of such profound, worshipful love that for a second, I almost forgot the dread. Almost. Daniel, she began, her voice trembling prettily. My husband. The crowd sighed. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were my forever, my rock. She took a steadying breath. And today, surrounded by everyone we love, I feel so blessed, so complete. She turned slightly, her gaze sweeping the room. It landed on me. The wattage of her smile didn't change, but something in her eyes did. A subtle shift, like the closing of a shutter. But you know, she continued, her tone turning confiding. No great love story is without its challenges, its tests. A light, understanding chuckle rippled through the guests. And I have to thank someone who, in a way, made me realize just how strong our love is, how unbreakable it is. My spine went rigid. Mia, standing beside me, went very still. My big sister, Clara. Isabel's voice was syrup sweet. She raised her glass toward me. Every head in the tent swiveled in my direction. 1,000 eyes. Clara has always been there for me. My role model. So strong. So independent. The words were right. But the cadence was wrong. It was the cadence of a knife being slowly sharpened. After her own marriage ended, well, I saw how lonely she was. How hard it was. And I think, in her loneliness, she got a little confused. A cold fist closed around my heart. The murmurs in the crowd died, replaced by a thick, attentive silence. This was no longer a toast. This was a pivot, confused about boundaries. Isabel went on, her voice dropping to a pained, intimate register the microphone picked up perfectly. Confused about what's hers, and what's mine, Izzy. Daniel said from his seat, his voice a low warning. He looked genuinely startled. Shifting uncomfortably, playing his part. No. Daniel. It's okay. It needs to be said. Here. Now. In the light. Isabel turned her wounded doe eyes back to the crowd. Some of you may have wondered why I only have one bridesmaid. My sister. It was a gesture of love. Of trust. But that trust. Her voice broke. A single, perfect tear traced a path through her makeup. That trust has been broken. 4 months now. I've tried to ignore it. The late-night texts to Daniel's phone. The chance meetings. The way she looks at him, the way she's always looked at him. Even back when they were together, the air was sucked from the room. I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. My father's muttered, Isabel. For God's sake, I stood frozen. The floor tilting under my feet. This was the script. This was the emotional crucible. I thought it was just my imagination. Isabel sobbed. The performance masterful in its devastation. My pre-wedding jitters. Until last week. She fumbled in the delicate bodice of her wedding dress and pulled out a phone. Her personal phone. With trembling fingers. She swiped the screen. Then held it up. The bandleader. Looking horrified but caught in the momentum. Fumbled with a cord and plugged it into the AV system. A massive, clear image projected onto the sheer silk screen behind the head table. It was a series of text messages. The sender's number was unsaved. Just digits. But the area code was mine. The message history showed my number. Unknown number, 10:14 p.m. Can't stop thinking about that night. It was a mistake. But God. It was perfect. Daniel, 10:15 p.m. We can't. Unknown number, 10:16 p.m. Just one more time. Before the wedding. For old time's sake. I need to see you. Daniel, 10:18 p.m. Where? Unknown number, 10:19 p.m. The usual place. Tomorrow. 8 p.m. I'll be waiting. The dates were from 10 days ago. The night of the bachelor party. I had been in the city. In a client meeting that ran until 9 p.m. Then at the gym with Mia. Dozens of people could verify it. But the screen, glowing in the darkened tent, was an incontrovertible, damning truth to everyone present. A collective gasp went up, followed by a roar of whispers. I felt the weight of hundreds of stares. A physical pressure. Horror. Disgust. Morbid fascination. No. I breathed. The word lost in the noise. That's not. I didn't. And then. Isabel cried out. Her voice cracking with fresh tears. I saw this. A new image flashed on the screen. A photograph. Grainy. Taken from a distance with a long lens. It showed a woman with my hair. My coat. Entering a discreet boutique hotel on a rainy night. The man holding the door for her. His face slightly blurred but unmistakably Daniel. His hand on the small of her back. The timestamp was 2 weeks ago. A date I'd been in Philadelphia for a furniture market. It was a lie. A grotesque, expertly crafted lie. But the evidence was there. Huge and glowing for all to see. I didn't send those texts. I finally found my voice. But it sounded thin. Desperate. Drowned out by the growing buzz. That's not me in that photo. Isabel. What are you doing? My mother was on her feet. Her face ashen. Clara. Stop it. She hissed. Not to Isabel. But to me. Just, stop. But it's fake. I turned to the crowd. To the sea of faces I'd known my whole life. Aunts. Uncles. Family friends. I saw judgment crystallizing in their eyes. The divorcee. The lonely, jealous older sister. It was a story they could believe. It fit a narrative they'd already, perhaps unconsciously, written for me. Someone is setting me up, Isabel let out a choked sob. Crumbling against the podium. Daniel rushed to her, gathering her in his arms, shooting me a look of pure, venomous betrayal. How could you? Clara, he shouted, his voice raw. After everything. I tried to be kind. I tried to let you down easy. But this, showing these lies at our wedding, lies. He was calling the evidence I claimed was fake. Lies. Inverting reality. The room spun. Aunt Lydia, my mother's sister, stood up. Her lips a thin, disapproving line. I always thought there was something off about the way you were around him. Clara. Even today. Watching you. My cousin Chloe. Nodding vigorously beside her. At the shower. You were all over him during the gift opening fabrications. Vicious. Petty fabrications. But they landed like stones. Each one building a wall between me and the rest of humanity in that tent. That's enough. My father's voice. A roar of anguish and fury. Cut through the din. He wasn't looking at Isabel. He was staring at me. His face a mask of pained disappointment. Clara. I think you should leave. Now. The words were a physical blow. Dad, oh now. He thundered. Pointing a shaking finger toward the exit. Tears of rage and helplessness blurred my vision. I looked at Mia. Her face was a storm of fury. But she was being physically held back by two of Daniel's usher friends. Their hands on her arms. Let her go. She was yelling. Can't you see this is bullshit? But no one listened. The narrative had been set. The evidence presented. The lonely, embittered sister. Trying to sabotage the happy couple's big day. It was too delicious. Too tragic. Too perfect. I was alone. Utterly. Completely alone in a room of 200 people. Then I saw him. Leaning against the far pole of the tent. Near the entrance. Holding a champagne flute as if watching a mildly interesting play. The man from the patio. The man in the dark overcoat. Except now he wore a tailored navy suit. He was older. With sharp, aristocratic features and silver hair. Our eyes met across the devastated, buzzing crowd. And he smiled. A small, cold, triumphant smile. Then he gave me a almost imperceptible nod. Raised his glass in a tiny, mocking toast. And turned. Melting away into the night outside the tent. It was him. The architect. The shock of that recognition cut through the paralyzing humiliation. This wasn't just Isabel's jealousy gone monstrous. This was coordinated. This had a signature, and I had a signature of my OWNMY hand, which had been trembling at my side, clenched into a fist. The panic began to recede, burned away by a cold, clarifying fury. They wanted a scene. They wanted evidence. They wanted to break me in front of everyone I knew. Fine, but I wouldn't be playing the part they'd written for me. I looked at Isabel, still pretending to weep in Daniel's arms. I looked at my parents. My father fuming. My mother hiding her face in her hands. I looked at the crowd. Their faces a gallery of condemnation. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I walked. I walked away from the head table. My steps slow and deliberate on the thick carpet. The silence in the tent so profound I could hear the rustle of my gown. I walked past my father. Not looking at him. I walked toward the exit. The crowd parting before me like I carried a contagion. I was almost at the edge of the dance floor when my mother's voice, ragged and tear-filled, called out, "Clara. Wait. Just come with me. Let's talk about this privately. Please." I stopped. I turned. I saw not the mother who'd dismissed me last night, but a woman watching her family disintegrate in real time. The plea in her eyes was genuine. It was also too late. Aunt Lydia swooped in, taking my mother's arm. Eleanor, don't. Let her go. She's made her choice. She's made her bed. She glared at me. Some people just have poison in them. That did it. The last thread of composure snapped. Not into hysteria, but into a deadly calm. No. I said, my voice ringing out, clear and steady in the hushed space. It wasn't a shout. It was a statement. I'm not leaving. Isabel's head snapped up from Daniel's shoulder, her tear-streaked face a mask of shock. She hadn't expected this. She'd expected me to run, broken, from the room, to be chased out, to be erased. I'm not leaving, I repeated, louder, walking back towards the center of the room. The crowd watched, mesmerized, the air crackling with a new, uncertain energy. You've made quite a production, Isabel. A really impressive performance. The texts, the photo. I stopped a few feet from the podium, from where she still clung to Daniel. You're right about one thing. Today is a test of who this family really believes, who they choose to stand with when presented with a convincing lie. It's not a lie, Isabel shrieked, the mask of wounded victim slipping for an instant, revealing the feral fury beneath. The evidence is right there. Evidence can be faked, I said, my gaze sweeping the room, landing on my cousin Chloe, on Aunt Lydia, on my father. Texts can be spoofed. Photos can be doctored. Any tech-savvy teenager could do it. But you know what's a lot harder to fake? I reached for the small, beaded evening bag I'd left on my chair. My fingers closed around it. Cool and firm. My mother took a step forward, a new fear in her eyes. Clara, what are you doing? Just come to the bridal suite. We'll sort this out. This isn't the place. You're right, Mom, I said. My eyes locked on Isabel's. This wasn't the place, but she made it the place. So here, in front of God and everyone, we'll finish it. I unclasped the bag. The room held its breath. Daniel's face had gone from feigned anger to genuine, pale fear. He was staring at my bag as if it contained a live serpent. Isabel saw his expression. Her confidence wavered. What is that? What are you doing? I didn't answer her. I addressed the crowd. The sea of faces now confused, their certainty shaken by my defiance. My sister has shared her evidence. Now, I'd like to share mine, and I pulled out my old, cracked iPhone. The cracked iPhone felt alien and familiar in my hand. A relic from a life I'd tried to seal away. The silence in the tent was no longer just attentive, it was shocked, heavy. A physical substance pressing down on us all. 200 people, holding their breath, waiting for my next move. The only sounds were the distant, incongruous clink of glasses from the kitchen and Isabel's ragged, theatrical breathing. What is that? My mother whispered, her voice a dry leaf skittering across stone. Clara, what are you doing with that old thing? Insurance, I said, my thumb finding the power button. The screen flickered to life, glowing with a soft, bluish light in the dimness of the tent. The home screen was a photo from years ago. Mark and me, smiling on a beach in Tulum. Our skin sun-kissed, our eyes squinting against the light. A lifetime ago, before the fortress we built became a prison, before the silence set in. Isabel's eyes widened, tracking the movement of my hands. Her performance momentarily faltered, replaced by a flicker of genuine, primal fear. She didn't know what was on the phone, but she recognized a threat. Daniel saw it too. He released his grip on her, taking a half-step back, as if putting physical distance between himself and whatever was about to happen. Don't. Daniel said. The word cracking. It wasn't a command, it was a plea. Don't what? Daniel. My voice was calm. A flat lake over unseen depths. Don't show everyone what you and my sister have been planning. Don't play the recording of you begging Mark for a loan to cover the $500,000 shortfall in your client escrow account. Or the one where Isabel explains, in rather creative detail, how framing me as a jealous adulteress would finally get me cut out of Grandma's trust. A collective, sharp intake of breath swept the room. My father's head snapped toward Daniel. What? She's lying. Isabel shrieked, the sound tearing through the quiet. She's insane. She's making this up to cover her own disgusting behavior. She lunged for the phone. But Mia, finally shaking off the stunned ushers, stepped smoothly in front of her. A human wall of righteous fury touched her. And I'll break every one of your manicured fingers, Mia said, her voice low and deadly calm. No one doubted her. Play it. Clara, Mia said, not taking her eyes off Isabel. Let's all hear the hit single My Fingers. Steady now. Navigated the old phone's interface. I found the voice memo app. A list of files. Dated and time-stamped. Scrolled by. My personal archive of a marriage's collapse. I selected one. The timestamp read, October 12, 2023, 9:14 p.m. I hit play for a second. There was just the hiss of empty audio. The faint sound of rain against a window. Then, a voice filled the tent, amplified by the same sound system that had just broadcast my supposed guilt. It was Mark's voice. Weary, irritated, dripping with a condescension I knew all too well. Mark's voice, from the recording, it's not a negotiation. Clara. It's math. The prenup is clear. You walk away with the apartment. The liquid assets we agreed on. Trying to go after the private equity stake? It's embarrassing. And it's pointless. My lawyers will tie you up for years. You'll be bankrupt on legal fees before you see a dime. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was a private, ugly moment. The dissolution of a marriage. Laid bare. My face burned. But I held the phone high. My gaze fixed on my parents. My mother had her hand over her mouth. My father looked. I LL'd my voice, tinny. From the phone, it's not about the money, Mark. It's about what's fair. I built a life with you. I put my career on hold for yours when we moved for your job. 4 years, Mark, a choice you now regret. Don't retroactively bill me for your dissatisfaction. Look, I'm trying to be reasonable here. More than reasonable. Given the circumstances. A long pause. The sound of a glass being set down heavily. My voice, what circumstances, Mark? Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. The loneliness. The distance. You think I didn't notice you checking out? You were a ghost in that penthouse for the last 2 years. A very expensive, very quiet ghost. A man has needs. Clara. A man needs to feel, seen. My own recorded inhale. Sharp and pained. Echoed in the tent. Hearing it again. In public. Was a fresh violation. But I let it play. My voice, quiet. Trembling. So it's my fault. Your indiscretions are my fault because I was quiet. Mark, I'm not here to assign fault. I'm here to offer a clean break. Take the deal. Walk away. Go live your quiet little life. Design your little rooms. But this, grasping. It's beneath you. And honestly, it's pathetic. Even your family sees it. Your sister. I stopped the recording. The abrupt silence was louder than the voices had been. I looked straight at Isabel, whose face was the color of parchment. My sister, what? Mark, I said aloud. To the frozen room. You didn't let him finish on the recording. He was drunk that night. And he was feeling particularly cruel. He said. Even your family sees it. Your sister. Isabel. She gets it. She says you've always been a martyr. That you'd rather be right and miserable than happy. She thinks cutting you out of the trust is the only way to make you wake up. I paraphrased. But the essence was there. The venom. The collaboration. He's a liar. Isabel spat. But the force was gone. Her eyes darted to Daniel. To my parents. To the crowd. Searching for a lifeline. He was angry. He was trying to hurt you. He succeeded. I said flatly. But that's not the interesting part. Fast forward a few months. I scrolled. Found another file. Jan 18. 2024. 7:02 p.m. I hit play. This recording was different. The audio was clearer. I was wearing the phone in a running belt. The mic picking up the ambient noise of a busy restaurant. The clatter of plates. The low hum of conversation. A business dinner with a difficult client that had gone late. I'd forgotten I'd even recorded it. But there. In the background. Unmistakable, Mark's voice, distant. But clear. Appreciate you meeting me. Leo. I know it's unorthodox. Another male voice, calm. Smooth. The voice from the patio. Unorthodox is my specialty. Mark. You said on the phone there was a familial complication. One that might be persuaded to resolve itself with the right incentive. Mark, my soon-to-be ex-sister-in-law. Isabel. She's engaged. To a guy who's in a bit of a bind. Daniel Shaw. You may know the name. A pause. The sound of ice clinking in a glass. Leo, Shaw. The lawyer. Yes. His firm has been creative with their accounting. A balloon about to pop. From what I hear. Messy. Mark, exactly. Isabel is desperate. She's sunk her own savings into this wedding. The parents are tapped out from the last recession. And Daniel's ship is taking on water. She came to me. For a loan. A big one. Leo, and you're considering it. After the divorce. That's generous. Mark's laugh. Cold and humorless. Generous? No. Strategic. Clara is being difficult about the settlement. She's got it in her head that she's entitled to more. She's clinging to this idea of fairness like a life raft. I need her to let go. I need her to be destabilized. Emotionally ruinous. A scandal. Maybe. Something that makes her look so toxic. So unhinged. That any judge. Any family member. Would tell her to take the pittance I'm offering and be grateful. The restaurant noise seemed to fade into a roar of blood in my ears as I listened. As the room listened. I saw understanding dawning on faces. The ugly picture coming into focus. Leo, you want the loan to be contingent on the sisters' cooperation. Mark, I want the loan to buy a solution. Isabel is vain, petty, and deeply jealous of Clara. She's also scared. Scared of being poor. Scared of looking like a failure. I float Daniel. Save his firm. Give her the wedding of her Instagram dreams. And in return, she makes sure Clara is so thoroughly, publicly disgraced that she has no allies left. Not even her parents. A clean break. Like you said. A permanent shift in allegiance. I get my clean divorce. Isabel gets her money and her white knight. Everyone wins. Leo, except Clara. Mark, Clara had her chance. She chose to be difficult. Now she gets to be alone. I stopped the recording. The silence this time was absolute. Profound. You could have heard a petal drop from one of the thousands of roses. My father was staring at Daniel. His face a mask of thunderous betrayal. Is this true? The question was a guttural growl. You came to my daughter for money. You used my family. Daniel opened his mouth. But no sound came out. He looked like a trapped animal. Dad. It's not like that. Isabel began. Her voice a thin wail. Shut up. My father roared. The force of it making several people jump. He never yelled. He was a man of quiet disapproval. Of stern looks. This fury was volcanic. Terrifying. He took a step toward Daniel. You little weasel. You were going to let her. He gestured wildly at Isabel. Then at me. Unable to even articulate the depth of the betrayal. For money, it was a business arrangement. Daniel blurted out. His lawyer's facade crumbling into panic. A short-term bridge loan. Mark approached us. He said Clara was being unreasonable. That she was trying to ruin him. He said if we helped, if we just let people believe she was still hung up on me, that it would weaken her position in the divorce. It was just gossip. A few whispers. Isabel was the one who took it further. The texts. The photo, that was her idea. She said we needed hard evidence, the dam broke. The careful fiction shattered under the weight of his own cowardice. Isabel stared at him. Her perfect features contorted in a rictus of shock and fury. You bastard. You spineless piece of shit. You agreed to it. You said it was brilliant. You said she deserved it for always looking down on you. I never said that. You did. The night we met with Leo. You said she always thought she was too good for you. That this would finally knock her off her high horse. Their voices, shrill and venomous, overlapped, painting a picture so much uglier, so much pettier than I had ever imagined. It wasn't just about money. It was about ancient, festering resentments. My refusal to be impressed by Daniel's career. My focus on my own life. My divorce. Which in their twisted view, was a failure that somehow reflected poorly on them. It was a snake pit of jealousy and spite. Financed by my ex-husband. My mother made a small, broken sound and sank into a chair. She wasn't looking at Isabel or Daniel. She was looking at me. Her eyes, wide with a horror that was finally, belatedly, directed at the right target, were fixed on my face, on the phone in my hand, on the evidence of a conspiracy she had dismissed as a vibe. Aunt Lydia's mouth was a perfect O of scandalized delight. Her earlier condemnation forgotten in the face of this new, juicier drama. Chloe was filming on her phone. Until her mother snatched it away with a sharp hiss, the room was in chaos. Guests whispered, pointed, some edging toward the exits, others leaning in, not wanting to miss a second. The band stood awkwardly on the stage, instruments silent. I felt a hand on my arm. Mia. Her touch was grounding. Breathe. Clara. She murmured. You're shaking. I was. A fine, violent tremor had taken hold of my entire body. The adrenaline that had carried me this far was receding, leaving a vast, hollow exhaustion. I had wanted the truth to come out. I had wanted them to know. But watching it unfold, hearing the vicious, small-minded cruelty laid bare, felt less like vindication and more like a surgical procedure without anesthetic. I found my voice, aiming it at the hushed, waiting crowd. There's more on here, I said, my voice raw. Conversations, plans, enough to make a judge, or a district attorney, very interested. This wasn't a sisterly spat. This was conspiracy, defamation, fraud. I looked at my parents. They sold me out. For a loan. For a prettier wedding. To settle a petty, decades-old score. My father's shoulders slumped. The fury was gone. Replaced by a weary, devastated shame. Clara. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. I corrected him. The words tasting like ash. You saw what you wanted to see. The difficult daughter. The problem. It was easier to believe I was the poison than to consider that your golden child could be this malignant Isabel. Seeing the tide had irrevocably turned. Switched tactics. The fury melted into abject, desperate pleading. She stumbled toward our parents, tears streaming. This time real ones born of terror. Mom. Dad. Please. He made me do it. She pointed a trembling finger at Daniel. He said we'd lose everything. The house. The firm. Everything. I was scared. I was trying to protect us. To protect the family, by destroying your sister? My mother whispered. The question so quiet it cut through Isabel's sobs. By standing up in front of everyone we know and telling those vile lies? For the first time, I saw a fracture in the unshakable fortress of my mother's belief in Isabel. A crack of sheer, disillusioned horror. She has everything. Isabel screamed. The mask gone. The raw, ugly envy laid bare for all to see. She always has. The talent. The independence. The easy way with people, even when she failed at marriage. She walked away with her head high and a new apartment. She never cared what anyone thought. I'm the one who tries. I'm the one who does everything right. Who gives you the perfect life to brag about. And for what? To watch her float through life. Above it all? Well, not this time. This time. I wanted her to feel it. To feel small. And ashamed. And alone. Her words hung in the air. A toxic confession. The wedding dress, once a symbol of purity, now looked like a costume. The tears had streaked her makeup into grotesque tracks. She was a stranger. A furious, wounded, pathetic stranger. I looked at her. At the wreckage of her face. At the ruins of the perfect day she had orchestrated. I felt no triumph. Only a deep, bottomless sorrow. The little girl who used to sneak into my bed was gone. Lost long ago to a jealousy I'd never fully understood. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The phone felt heavy in my hand. A cudgel I no longer wanted to wield. I had what I came for. The truth was out. The narrative was broken. The loan from Mark. I said. My voice finally giving out to a hoarse whisper. I cleared my throat. Forced strength into it. I addressed Daniel. Who was staring at the floor. It's contingent on the wedding going through. Isn't it? On the clean break being successful. On me being ostracized. He didn't look up. But gave a single, stiff nod. I turned to my parents. So you have a choice. You can have this. I gestured to Isabel. To Daniel. To the grotesque spectacle. This marriage. Built on a foundation of lies and my ruin. Or you can have me. It was a brutal ultimatum. Unfair. Perhaps. But I was past fair. I was past playing by the rules of a game that was rigged against me from the start. And my mother was crying silently. My father looked from Isabel. His fallen princess. To me. The daughter he'd just publicly condemned. The daughter holding the proof of his catastrophic misjudgment before he could speak. I did. I'm leaving. I said. I slipped the old phone back into my clutch. The weight of it was gone. Don't contact me. Any of you. I turned my back on them. On the ruins of the wedding. On the family that was no longer mine. I walked. Once more. Through the parting crowd. But this time. The stares were different. Not condemnation. But a kind of awed, horrified pity. And shame. A lot of shame. Mia fell into step beside me. Looping her arm through mine. A solid, warm presence. I'll drive. She said softly. We didn't run. We walked. With a slowness that felt ceremonial. Out of the tent. Away from the lights and the music that would never play again. Into the cool, dark Connecticut night. The sound of Isabel's weeping followed us for a moment. Then was swallowed by the distance. As we reached Mia's car. A black Audi parked haphazardly on the gravel. I paused. I didn't look back. I looked up at the sky. Clear and littered with cold, indifferent stars. It was over. I had won. I had exposed them. So why did I feel so utterly, completely hollow? Mia opened the passenger door. Get in. She said. Her voice gentle. Let's go home. I got in. She closed the door. Shutting out the night. As she started the engine. The headlights cut two bright swaths through the darkness. I finally let the tremor take over. My hands shaking so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. Mia put the car in drive. We pulled away, leaving the gilded cage, the altar of lies, and the ghosts of my past burning in the rearview mirror. The road ahead was dark and empty, and mine, the hum of the Audi's engine, was a low, steady thrum against the roar of blood in my ears. Connecticut's dark, tree-lined roads blurred past, punctuated by the occasional glow of a distant house. The world outside the car felt surreal. A film playing at the wrong speed. Inside, the silence was thick, charged with the aftershocks of what we'd just left behind. Mia drove with a focused intensity, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. She hadn't spoken since we'd pulled away from the country club, giving me the space to simply exist, to breathe. I stared at my hands, still clasped in my lap. They'd stopped shaking, replaced by a strange, detached numbness. The adrenaline that had propelled me through the confrontation, that had lent steel to my voice as I played those damning recordings, had drained away, leaving me hollow and brittle. You're freezing, Mia said finally, her voice cutting through the static in my head. She reached over, cranked up the heater. Warm air flooded the footwell. Am I? My own voice sounded foreign, raspy from disuse. You're in shock. It wasn't a question. She glanced at me, her profile sharp in the dashboard lights. Do you want me to take you to your parents' house? To get your things? A harsh, dry sound escaped my throat. A laugh. Or something like it. No. God. No. I never want to set foot in that house again. The finality of the statement hit me as I said it. It was true. That chapter, the one labeled family home, was closed. Burned. Okay. Your apartment in the city. Then. We'll send for your stuff later. Or buy new stuff. Fuck it. We'll burn it all and start from scratch. Her attempt at humor fell flat. But the sentiment was a lifeline. They were all there. Mia. I whispered, the words slipping out unbidden. I wasn't talking about Isabel or Daniel. Aunt Lydia. Uncle Frank. The Carmichaels. Chloe. Everyone I've known since I was a child. They all looked at me. They believed her. Instantly. The memory of those collective gazes, hardening from curiosity to condemnation in the space of a few seconds, was a fresh wound. They believed what they were shown. Mia corrected, her tone firm. They were presented with a story that made a twisted kind of sense. The jealous older sister. The narrative is a cliché for a reason. People are lazy. They'd rather swallow a simple, salacious lie than digest a complex, ugly truth. She paused. Until you forced the truth down their throats. That took guts. Clara. More guts than I've ever seen. It didn't feel brave. It felt inevitable. Like the only move left on a board that was already rigged against me. It was the winning move. She said. You didn't just defend yourself. You nuked the entire game board from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Sorry. Too soon for aliens references, this time. The sound I made was closer to a real laugh. Short and pained. Never. I leaned my head against the cool window. The man. At the wedding. Did you see him, the guy in the suit? Silver hair. Looked like he wandered off the set of a Bond villain? Yeah. I saw him. He was gone before the toast even started. Who is he? I don't know. But he's the one I heard talking to Daniel on the patio last night. The one with the plan. The calm voice on the recording. Leo. Saying the name aloud made it more real. A person. A co-conspirator. Not just a disembodied voice. Mark called him Leo. Said unorthodox was his specialty. A fixer. Mia murmured. Her eyes on the road. A private intelligence guy. Maybe. The kind who arranges unfortunate accidents of the digital variety. spoofed texts, doctored photos. She swore softly. This wasn't just Isabel's petty jealousy. Clara. This was a professional operation. Your ex-husband hired a fucking spy to take you down the pieces. Jagged and ugly, began to click into a more horrifying picture. It wasn't just a family betrayal. It was a coordinated attack. A financial transaction. With my reputation and my family as the currency. The hollowness inside me began to fill with something else. A cold, simmering rage. I need my laptop, I said, sitting up straighter. And my other phone. My real one. They're in my suitcase. In the trunk of my dad's car at the house. We're not going back there. Mia stated. I know. But my cousin Ethan is there. Mia shot me a look. Ethan? The goth tech kid who fixed my router that one Thanksgiving and spent the whole dinner explaining blockchain to the turkey. That's the one. He's not goth anymore. He's a white hat hacker for a cybersecurity firm in Boston. And he's the only one in that entire family who never bought into the Saint Isabel bullshit. He thinks she's a high-functioning sociopath with the emotional intelligence of a teaspoon. His words. I was already reaching for Mia's phone, which was connected to the car's console. I need to call him now? It's almost midnight. And he's probably still at the world's most awkward wedding reception. He left. I saw him go right after I played the first recording. He looked like he was about to be sick. I found his contact in her phone. She'd saved it after the router incident. I hit call. Putting it on speaker. It rang 3 times before a low, wary voice answered. Mia? Why are you? Is Clara with you? Is she okay? The concern in his voice was immediate. Unfeigned. It almost undid me. I'm here. Ethan. I said. My throat tight. A beat of silence. Holy shit. Clara. What the fuck was that? A long story. One I'm still piecing together. I need a favor. A big one. Anything. Name it. I'm in my car. Driving back to the city. I couldn't stay. After what they did. Jesus. Clara. His anger was a palpable thing. Crackling through the speaker's my suitcase. It's in the trunk of my dad's Lexus. Blue hard shell. Tumi tag. Inside. There's a laptop case. I need you to get it for me. Get it? How? You want me to go back and ask Uncle Richard for the keys? Hey. Sorry, your life is imploding. Can I grab Clara's stuff? No. I want you to get it without asking. I took a breath. You still carry that lockpick set? The one you showed me at Christmas when you were pissed Dad called your job playing with computers. A longer silence. Then. A slow, appreciative exhale. Yeah. I carry it. You want me to pop the trunk? Can you do it, for a 2022 Lexus RX? That's child's play. Their security is a joke. Where's the car? It'll be in the driveway. They won't have moved it. They're occupied. I pictured the scene. The shattered reception. The frantic, hushed arguments. The tears. My mother's devastation. My father's fury. Isabel's meltdown. The image should have given me satisfaction. It just made me tired. There's also a small black clutch in the suitcase. My everyday phone is in it. I need that too. Consider it done. Where do I bring it? I looked at Mia. Your place. I mouthed. Her apartment in Williamsburg was a fortress. She nodded. Bring it to Mia's. You have the address? Yeah. I'll be there in a couple of hours. Depending on traffic. Clara, that guy. The silver-haired guy. Who was he? My pulse jumped. You saw him. I saw him watching. The whole time. During Isabel's little performance. He wasn't shocked. He was assessing. Like a quality control inspector. And when you started playing your recording, he didn't look surprised. He looked pissed. And then he just vanished. Poof. No one else seemed to notice him. A professional. In and out. observing the results of his handiwork. His name is Leo. He's working with Mark. He's the one who arranged the evidence. Ethan whistled softly. This is some next level shit. Okay. I'm on it. I'll see you soon. And Clara? For what it's worth. I'm sorry. About all of it, thanks. Ethan. I ended the call. The simple, uncomplicated solidarity was a balm. A single, sturdy thread in the unraveling tapestry. Mia merged onto the highway. The car accelerating into the stream of late-night traffic. The city skyline appeared in the distance. A jagged crown of light. Okay, she said. Her business voice on. The one she used when we had a problematic client or a shipping disaster. We have Ethan on retrieval. What's step 2? I closed my eyes. Thinking. The numbness was receding. Burned away by the cold fire of anger and a newfound, sharp-edged clarity. I was no longer a victim reacting. I was a strategist. Step 2 is understanding the full scope. We have the what? Isabel and Daniel, with Mark's funding and Leo's expertise, tried to destroy me socially and within the family to pressure me in the divorce and secure money. But we need the why now and the how exactly. I opened my eyes. Looking at Mia. The texts. The photo. They were good. Flawless. To anyone not looking for a flaw, that's not just photoshopping a head onto a body. That's creating a narrative. It takes time. Resources. This wasn't a last-minute plan. This was in motion for a while. Mark said it on the recording. Mia said. He needed you destabilized for the divorce. The final hearing is, when, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature seeped into my bones. 3 weeks from Monday bingo. He needed a big, public scandal to make you look unstable. Vengeful. To sway the judge on any contested assets. A woman who would sabotage her own sister's wedding. A judge might look less kindly on her claim to a share of her ex-husband's private equity fund. It made a sickening kind of sense. Mark was ruthless. But he was also a master of leverage. He'd turned my own family into a weapon against me. The depth of the calculation was breathtaking, but the photo. I insisted. Thinking aloud. They needed a body double. A woman who looks like me. From behind. In my coat. With my hair. Entering a hotel with Daniel. That's not just digital forgery. That's physical surveillance. That's legwork. Leo's legwork. Mia said grimly. Which means he's been watching you. For how long? The thought made my skin crawl. Had he been in the crowd outside my office? In the coffee shop? The sense of violation was absolute. 1,000 times worse than the public humiliation. My privacy. My daily life. Had been a stage for their plotting. We need to find him. I said. Leo. We need to know who he is. What he's capable of. And we need to know everything about Daniel's finances. If he was desperate enough for a loan from Mark to go along with this. His drowning. There might be more. Other creditors. Other crimes. Mia nodded. Her expression grim. That's Ethan's department. Once he gets your gear. In the meantime. She bit her lip. Your parents are going to call. Probably already have. ALOT if on cue. My old iPhone. The one with the recordings. Buzzed in my clutch. Then buzzed again. And again. A flurry of notifications lighting up the screen. I didn't need to look to know. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. The fallout was beginning. I'm not ready. I said softly. Staring at the phone as if it were a live grenade. I can't hear their voices. Not yet, then don't. Mia said simply. You get to decide when. Or if. You ever are. Right now. You're in crisis mode. You triage. You secure your position. You gather intelligence. Then. And only then. Do you deal with the emotional shrapnel? She was right. It was the only way to function. To compartmentalize. The grief. The betrayal. The seismic loss of my family. That was a tsunami waiting to drown me. I had to build a wall against it. Just for now. Focus on the facts. The evidence. The enemy, take the next exit. I said. My voice stronger. We're not going to your place yet. We're not. No. We're going to the office. Our design studio was in a converted loft in Nomad. It was empty at this hour. A sanctuary of our own making. It was also home to our most powerful computer. The one we used for architectural renderings and 3D modeling. It could handle complex data searches. Run facial recognition software for sourcing lookalike models for clients. Legitimately. And it was secure good thinking. Mia said. Changing lanes, the studio was dark and quiet. Smelling of sandalwood incense. Fresh paint. And potential. We'd built this place from nothing. It was ours. A space untouched by the poison of the last 24 hours. Flipping on the lights felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I went straight to my desk. Booting up the massive desktop. Mia put on a pot of coffee. The familiar ritual grounding us both. By the time Ethan arrived, looking like a startled crow in his all-black hoodie and carrying my suitcase and clutch like they were contraband, I was already deep in a rabbit hole. Your dad's car alarm is pathetic, Ethan announced, dropping the bags by the door. He was tall and lanky, with sharp, intelligent eyes behind thick-framed glasses. His hair was currently dyed a deep plum. I was in and out in 90 seconds. No one saw me. The house was loud. Lots of yelling. He looked at me, his expression softening. You look like hell, thanks. I feel it. I took the bags from him. My fingers trembled slightly as I unzipped the suitcase and found the laptop case. My real phone, in the clutch, was blowing up. Dozens of notifications. I silenced it and set it aside. The laptop was what I needed. What's the play? Ethan asked, pulling up a chair. He had the eager, focused energy of a hound on a scent. This was his element. Puzzles. Systems. Breaking things to see how they worked. We need to find a man named Leo, I said. Logging in. Silver hair. Late 50s or early 60s. Sharp features. Calm voice. Probably ex-military. Ex-law enforcement. Or ex-intelligence. His working with my ex-husband, Mark, to fabricate evidence and orchestrate a character assassination. His good. He arranged a convincing text message spoof and a photographic composite that fooled 200 people at close range. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Spoofing a text is easy. The photo, that's harder. You'd need a base image of the mark. You. From the right angle. In the right clothes. Then you'd need a clean image of the target, Daniel. From a similar context. Then you'd need to composite them seamlessly. Matching lighting. Shadows. Grain, and you'd need to plant a digital footprint. The metadata. Timestamp. Geolocation. He whistled. This guy isn't an amateur. He's a pro. Probably uses spyware. Or at least sophisticated surveillance. To get the source material, can we find him? Mia asked, handing us both mugs of strong, black coffee, with a name and a vague description. Maybe. The name Leo is probably an alias or a shortening. Leonardo. Leon. Leopold. Ethan cracked his knuckles, swiveling to a spare keyboard. But we have another angle. The money. You said Mark gave Daniel a loan. A big, secret, shady loan contingent on destroying you. Follow the money. It always leaves a trace. No matter how well you hide it. Banks have records. Wire transfers. Shell companies. He looked at me. Do you have any of Mark's account info? Anything from the divorce proceedings? I did. In a secure folder on my laptop. Financial disclosures. Asset lists. The works. My lawyer, a pit bull named Linda Crow, had made sure we got everything we were entitled to. I pulled it up. Mark's main holdings are here. But if he was moving money for something like this, he'd use a different vehicle. Something less transparent, probably a limited liability company. An LLC. Maybe set up recently. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Pulling up a business registry database. Let's see what your ex-husband has been up to. We worked in silence for an hour. The only sounds the clicking of keys and the occasional slurp of coffee. The world outside the windows stayed dark. The city sleeping. Oblivious to the microdrama unfolding in our loft bingo. Ethan said softly, Mia, and I crowded behind him. On the screen was the registration for a Delaware LLC named Eathled Holdings. The registered agent was a law firm I didn't recognize. The managing member was listed as L.S. Capstone.L.S. I murmured. Leo. Something. Delaware doesn't require much info. Ethan said. But look at the filing date. He pointed. 3 months ago. Right around the time Mark's settlement offers started getting really aggressive and weird. Can we see who owns it? Who Capstone is, not directly. It's a black box. But Ethan opened another tab. A people search database that made me slightly uneasy. He typed in Leonard Capstone. Nothing. Leo Capstone. Nothing. He tried variations. L.S. Capstone as a name. A few random people appeared. None fitting the description. Try a reverse image search. I said. An idea forming. You saw him. Can you describe him to one of those AI art generators? Get a rough composite. Ethan's eyes lit up. You're a genius. He spent 20 minutes with a sophisticated AI art platform. Refining prompts. Male. Late 50s. Silver hair. Sharp aristocratic features. Cold eyes. Square jaw. Looks like a retired spy or a corporate raider. The image that coalesced on the screen wasn't perfect. But it was chillingly close. A strong, ruthless face. The eyes were particularly lifelike. Pale. Assessing. Devoid of warmth, Ethan fed the image into a reverse search engine that scoured the web. Including professional networking sites, news archives, and even obscure corporate headshots. We waited. The cursor blinking. The search churned through terabytes of data, then it returned a single hit. A small, grainy thumbnail from a trade publication article from 5 years ago. The caption read, Security Consulting Panel at Global Risk Management Symposium. Zurich. The image showed a group of men in suits on a stage. One of them, slightly off to the side, was our man. Older. His hair more salt and pepper than silver. But unmistakable. The name listed below the photo, Leopold Stern. Principal. Capstone Strategic Solutions. Leopold Stern. I read the name aloud. It suited him. Austere. European. Capstone. That's the LLC. Eathled Holdings is one of his vehicles. Ethan was already searching the name. Oh. Wow. He whispered. Scrolling. Leopold Leo Stern. Former MI6. Went private 15 years ago. Strategic Solutions is a euphemism for corporate espionage. Reputation management. Which is destroying reputations. And competitive intelligence. He's based in London but operates globally. High-end clientele. No criminal record. But he's been named in a few interesting lawsuits. All settled out of court. NDAs sealed. He looked at me. His face grim. Your ex hired a fucking mercenary. Clara. A ghost with a very expensive price tag. The room felt suddenly colder. This wasn't just a bitter ex and a jealous sister. This was a shadow war. And I'd just stepped into the light. Painting a target on my back, why? Mia asked, voicing the question that now terrified me. I mean, to ruin you in a divorce. That's overkill. Mark's a dick. But this is Bond villain level dickery. What aren't we seeing? I stared at Leopold Stern's face on the screen. His calm, professional smile. The man who saw people as problems to be solved. The man who had been watching me.my phone. The old one. Buzzed again on the desk. A new voicemail notification. Then a text preview flashed on the screen. It was from my mother. Mom, Clara. Please. We need to talk. Your father, he's not well. Isabel is, it's all falling apart. Please call me. We were wrong. We were so wrong. The words were a siren's call. Pulling at the raw, wounded part of me that still wanted my mother. That still wanted to believe in a family that could be put back together. But next to that text, on the computer screen, Leopold Stern's cold eyes stared back at me. The two images, the desperate plea and the professional predator, were part of the same tapestry. One was the emotional weapon. The other was the hand that forged it. I looked from the phone to the screen. The cold, logical part of my mind wrestling with the shattered, grieving part. We're not done, I said. My voice barely a whisper. Finding him, that's just the beginning. We need to know what Mark is so desperate to hide that he'd hire a man like this. We need to know what's in the divorce file that I missed. And we need to know what Leo's real endgame is. Because ruining me for a few extra percentage points in a settlement. I shook my head. Meeting Mia's and Ethan's eyes. That doesn't justify a Leopold Stern. There's something else. A thread we haven't pulled yet. I reached out. Not for my mother's pleading text. But for the mouse. I clicked on Leopold Stern's face. Zooming in, and we're going to pull it until the whole fucking thing unravels. Sleep. When it came, was a thin, treacherous blanket. I drifted in a liminal space. Haunted by flickering images, the blinding flash of a camera phone catching my stunned face, the cold, clinical smile of Leopold Stern, Isabel's eyes. Not tearful but blazing with a venomous triumph, the sea of faces in the tent. All turned against me. My body was in Mia's spare bedroom, nestled in soft linens. But my mind was trapped in the country club ballroom, reliving the ambush on a continuous, torturous loop. I awoke with a gasp just after dawn. My heart thudding against my ribs. The taste of bile in my throat. For a disorienting second, I didn't know where I was. Then the memories slammed back. Not as fragments but as a solid, suffocating mass. The weight of it pressed me into the mattress. They did it. My family. My sister. They actually did it. The grief arrived then. Not as tears, but as a physical ache. A deep, hollowing pain in my chest. It felt like a death. The death of the family I thought I had. The death of the little sister I'd protected, cheered for, loved despite everything. The death of my own place in the world. I lay there, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, and let the loss wash over me. I didn't fight it. For the first time since the microphone had been thrust into Isabel's hands, I stopped strategizing, stopped analyzing, and just felt the devastation. After a long time. The raw, scraping pain began to recede, leaving behind a cold, clear emptiness. And in that emptiness, a new resolve crystallized. Harder and sharper than anything I'd felt before. This wasn't just about exposing a lie anymore. It was about justice. It was about making sure that the people who had done this, Mark, Isabel, Daniel, and their hired ghost, Stern, could never do anything like it again. To me. Or to anyone. A soft knock sounded at the door. Clara? You awake? Mia's voice was low, tentative. Come in. She entered, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She looked almost as tired as I felt. Shadows under her eyes. She'd been up late with Ethan. Digging deeper. She handed me a mug and sat on the edge of the bed, studying my face. "How you holding up?" "I'm not," I said honestly, taking a sip. The coffee was bitter and strong. A welcome anchor. "But I'm not falling apart either. I'm just here." In the aftermath. Ethan's on the couch, snoring like a chainsaw. "He found more last night. After you crashed. A lot more." She hesitated. "Your mom called. Again. And your dad." I let it go to voicemail. "I didn't know what you wanted me to do." "Nothing," I said, my voice flat. "I want to do nothing. Not yet." The thought of hearing their voices, their apologies, their justifications, was unbearable. Their regret couldn't break what was broken. It just added another layer of complexity to the pain. "What did Ethan find?" Mia's expression turned grim. "Let's get some food in you first. Then we'll go to the war room." The war room was our dining table, now covered in laptops, cables, and notepads covered in Ethan's precise, angular handwriting. He was already there, shoveling cereal into his mouth, his eyes fixed on 3 different screens. He looked up as we entered. "Morning." "Or whatever. You look like you wrestled a bear and lost." "Thanks." Ethan. "No problem." "Okay. Listen up." He gestured with his spoon. Leopold Stern, aka Leo, his firm, Capstone Strategic Solutions, is a boutique shop. Very high-end. Very discreet. They don't have a website. Getting a client list is impossible. Their entire business is secrecy. But by cross-referencing corporate filings, property records, and some, less public forums, I've pieced together a pattern. He often works for ultra-high net worth individuals in the middle of contentious, high-stakes divorces or partnership dissolutions. His specialty isn't gathering dirt, it's creating leverage, fabricating scandals, orchestrating chance discoveries of infidelity, poisoning business relationships. He makes problems go away by making the other person become the problem. "So Mark hired him to make me the problem," I said, pulling up a chair. The coldness in my gut intensified. "Exactly. But here's the thing. Stern's usual fee is in the high 6 figures. Sometimes 7. For a full-spectrum reputation realignment like this. Surveillance, digital forgery, psychological ops. You're looking at the top of that range." Mark was wealthy, but not liquid wealthy. His money was tied up in investments, the penthouse, illiquid funds. Writing a check for $1 million to a shadowy fixer would be noticeable, even for him. The loan to Daniel. I realized aloud. It wasn't just a bribe. It was a payment vehicle. Mark loans money to Daniel's failing firm. Daniel pays Stern from that capital. Maybe through a fake consulting contract or inflated invoices. The money is laundered through Daniel's business. Ethan pointed his spoon at me. "Give the lady a prize." That's my read too. I've been tracing the shell company, Etheld Holdings. Its money flows are a maze, but they all lead back to a series of transfers from a private equity fund Mark controls a minority stake in. The fund that's been the main point of contention in your divorce. The pieces locked together with an almost audible click. The private equity stake. The one my lawyer, Linda Crow, had been insisting I had a marital claim to. Mark had been fighting it tooth and nail, claiming it was premarital, that its valuation was impossible to determine. He'd offered cash instead. A lot of cash. But a fraction of what the stake might be worth if the fund had a successful exit. He's not just trying to avoid sharing the stake, I whispered, the magnitude of the deception dawning on me. He's trying to devalue it, or hide its real value. If I'm publicly branded a mentally unstable man-stealing harpy right before the final hearing, the judge might look less favorably on my claim. He might pressure me to settle for the cash, just to make the messy Public case go away. And Mark saves millions. Tens of millions. Maybe Mia let out a low whistle. So this wasn't about a wedding. Or jealousy. Or even just about being a dick. This was a multi-million-dollar financial fraud. With you as the designated casualty, the coldness in me turned to ice. This transformed everything. The personal betrayal was now inextricably linked to a cold, calculated financial crime. My humiliation was a line item on a balance sheet. We have to prove it. I said. We have the recordings. We have Stern's identity and his MO. We have the shell company. But it's all circumstantial. A good lawyer. And Mark has the best money can buy. Could explain it away. A loan to a family member. An unfortunate misunderstanding fueled by sisterly rivalry. My edited recordings taken out of context. I thought of the smooth, unflappable man I'd seen at the wedding. Leopold Stern wouldn't have left a direct, prosecutable trail. We need something concrete. A communication between Mark and Stern that lays out the plan. A financial record that directly ties Mark's payment to Stern's services. Or something from Daniel that admits to the fraud. Ethan leaned back, tapping his fingers on the table. Their digital communications will be locked down. Encrypted messaging apps that vanish. Burner phones. Stern would have insisted on it. The money is laundered for a reason. The weak link is Daniel. He's not a professional spy. He's a desperate, cornered lawyer in over his head. He'll be panicking. People who panic make mistakes. They use their personal email for something they shouldn't. They leave a voicemail. They confess to someone they think is on their side. I thought of Daniel's face, pale and sweating at the altar. His quick, cowardly betrayal of Isabel when the heat was on. He was the brittle link in the chain. We need to talk to him. I said. Mia's head snapped up. Are you insane? After what he just did? He'll hang up on you. Or worse. Record the call and try to use it against you, not me. I said. A plan forming. Cold and clear. We need someone he'll talk to. Someone he trusts. Or pities. Or feels he can manipulate. I looked at Ethan. Can you make a phone number look like it's coming from someone else? Spoof a caller ID. Ethan's eyes gleamed behind his glasses. Clara. I'm offended you even have to ask. Who's the Mark? And who do you want to be? I took a deep breath. The Mark is Daniel Shaw. I want the caller ID to show it's coming from my father's cell phone. Silence fell over the table. Mia stared at me. Comprehension dawning. Followed by a flicker of apprehension. Clara, Daniel will be desperate to do damage control with my parents. I reasoned. They're the only ones with any social capital left who might still be swayed. He'll want to explain. To spin this. To blame Isabel. To salvage something. If he thinks my dad is calling him, terrified and angry after a heart attack scare, Daniel might let his guard down. He might say something he shouldn't. A heart attack scare? Mia echoed. My mom's text said my father wasn't well. It's a plausible enough hook. Ethan. Can you do the voice? Sound like my dad? You've known him your whole life. Ethan's face was a mask of concentration. Richard's voice is a low baritone, with a slight rasp from his old pipe-smoking days. He speaks slowly, like he's measuring each word. I can do an approximation, especially if Daniel is already panicked. He cleared his throat. And when he spoke, the transformation was uncanny. The youthful, tech-inflected cadence was gone, replaced by a weary, older man's rumble. Daniel. It's Richard. We need to talk. About this disaster. A chill ran down my spine. It was too close for comfort. Mia looked equally unsettled. That's creepy and brilliant. Mia said. But it's also entrapment. It might not be admissible in court. I'm not thinking about court yet. I said. I'm thinking about proof. For me. For my parents. To understand the full picture. Once we have the truth on tape, then we can go to Linda and see what's admissible. I looked at Ethan. Can you record the call? Cleanly. I can record both ends, he said, his fingers already flying over a secondary keyboard, pulling up complex software interfaces. I'll route a spoofed call through a proxy. Record the audio locally. It'll be crystal clear. When do you want to do this? Now, I said. Before he has time to get his story straight with Mark or Stern. Before he lawyers up in a way that prevents him from talking at all. Ethan nodded. All business. Give me 20 minutes to set up the spoof and get the voice modulator tuned. You need to write a script. Key points to hit. We need to get him to admit to the loan from Mark, the arrangement with Stern, and the plan to fabricate evidence for the next hour. We worked with a focused, quiet intensity. Mia brewed more coffee. I drafted a series of questions, trying to anticipate Daniel's defenses, his evasions. We crafted a narrative for Richard, a father shattered by his daughter's betrayal, physically ill, desperately trying to understand why. The goal wasn't to accuse, but to solicit confession, to play the disappointed patriarch who just needs to hear the truth, no matter how ugly. Ready? Ethan said finally. He donned a high-quality headset. I'm dialing now. Mia and I held our breath. Ethan hit a key. We heard the dial tone. Then the ring. 1, 2, 3. A click. Hello. Daniel's voice was tense, ragged. He sounded like he hadn't slept. Ethan, using my father's voice, began. Daniel. It's Richard. A sharp intake of breath on the other end. Richard. Sir. God. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. About everything. How are you holding up? Not well. Daniel. Not well at all. Eleanor is sedated. The doctor was here. My blood pressure, it's a miracle I'm talking to you at all. The weariness in Ethan's performance was masterful. The slight tremor of age and shock. Oh, Jesus. Sir. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I never wanted any of this. What did you want? Daniel. The question was gentle, almost plaintive. Help me understand. You were going to be my son-in-law. We welcomed you. And then, this grotesque pageant. Lying about my own daughter. In front of everyone. A crack appeared in the voice. Perfectly timed. It wasn't supposed to be like that. Daniel's words tumbled out in a frantic rush. It was just supposed to be whispers. A little rumor to apply pressure. Mark said it was the only way. He said Clara was going to take him for everything. That she'd ruin him. The loan, he offered the loan. But he said we had to help. He said it was just to make her look unstable. To get her to back down on the divorce terms. He had a guy. A professional. Who would handle the details. We just had to play along. My hand tightened around the edge of the table. Hearing him say it, in his own voice, was a different order of magnitude than the second-hand recording. A professional. Ethan as Richard repeated. Dully. This. Leo person Stern. Leopold Stern. His not a guy you say no to. He laid it all out. The texts. The photo. It was all fake. I swear. I never touched Clara. Not since college. But Stern said it had to be believable. He had people watching her. Getting the right shots. The right angles. He said the digital trail was foolproof. That no one would question it. Daniel's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. He said if we did it right, not only would Mark's loan save my firm, but once Clara was out of the picture, Mark would cut us in on a share of the fund. The one Clara was after. It was a win-win. For us. For me and Isabel. I closed my eyes. A share of the fund. So it was even more direct. They weren't just being paid to slander me, they were being offered a stake in the very asset they were helping Mark steal from me. The greed was breathtaking. A share. Richard's voice echoed, hollow with disgust. You sold my daughter's good name for a share in a business deal. It wasn't like that. It was business. And Isabel, she was on board. More than on board. She was the one who insisted we go bigger. The wedding thing, that was her idea. She said a public humiliation would be permanent. That Clara would never recover. I tried to talk her down. But she was obsessed. She's always been obsessed with Clara. With beating her. With having what she has. I just got caught in the middle. He was throwing Isabel under the bus with both hands. Just as he had at the wedding. His survival instinct was absolute. It was pathetic. It was also perfect for our purposes, so you admit it. Richard said. The weariness giving way to a steely edge. You. Mark. This stern. And my daughter Isabel. You conspired to fabricate evidence of an affair to defame Clara. To influence a divorce proceeding. And for financial gain. You took money from Mark. Funneled it to a criminal. And tried to destroy my child's life. Do I have that right? Daniel, the silence on the other end of the line was profound. The spell broke. Daniel was realizing. Too late. That he had just confessed to multiple felonies. Conspiracy. Fraud. Defamation. On a recorded line, he would assume, with his former future father-in-law. I have to go. He stammered. His voice tight with panic. No. Daniel. You'll listen to me now. Ethan's voice dropped. Shedding the last vestiges of frailty. Becoming the voice of judgment. It was no longer just an impression, it was something else. Something terrifying in its cold certainty. You will provide me with every piece of documentation you have relating to this. The loan agreements with Mark. Your communications with Stern. Everything. You will do it today. Or I will take this recording. And the others Clara has. Straight to the district attorney's office and the State Bar Association. You'll lose more than your firm. Daniel. You'll lose your license. And you will go to prison. The line went dead. Daniel had hung up. Ethan slowly removed his headset. The three of us sat in the sudden, ringing silence of the dining room. The only sound was the faint hum of the computers. Well, Mia said. Her voice barely a whisper. That was effective. I finished. My own voice strangely calm. The ice inside me had spread. A glacial certainty. We had him. We had a direct, unambiguous confession. It was all there, the players. The motive. The method. The financial fraud. The conspiracy. Ethan was already saving the audio file in multiple, encrypted locations. He's going to panic. He'll either run to Mark and Stern. Or he'll try to cut a deal. We need to move. Now. We go to Linda. I said. Standing up. My legs felt steady. My lawyer. We play her everything. The wedding recordings. This call. We give her Stern's identity. The shell company trail. She'll know what to do. She'll know how to use it to not only secure my divorce settlement but to file counterclaims for tortious interference. Defamation. And God knows what else. And she'll know if we have enough for criminal referrals. Mia stood too. Grabbing her keys. I'll drive. Ethan. You're on digital overwatch. Monitor Daniel's and Mark's known email addresses. See if there's any flare-up in activity. And keep digging into Stern. We need to know if he's still in the country. As we headed for the door. My old iPhone. Still sitting on the coffee table. Buzzed again. Not a call this time. A text. From an unknown number. The blood in my veins turned to slush. I walked over slowly and picked it up. Unknown number. The recording was a bold move. Ms. Thorne. Unexpectedly resourceful. But the game is not over. Pieces removed from the board can still cause damage. Consider your next move very, very carefully. Else he knew. Stern knew about the new recording. He knew we'd just spoken to Daniel. How? Had Daniel called him immediately? Was he tracing our spoof? Was he watching Mia's apartment? I showed the phone to Mia and Ethan. The color drained from Ethan's face. He's monitoring Daniel's line. Of course he is. He'd have it tapped. This guy is a pro. He started typing furiously. I need to sweep this place for bugs. Now, the fear was a live wire, snapping in the air. But beneath it, the ice held firm. Stern's message wasn't a threat that paralyzed me, it was a confirmation. We were on the right track. We were a threat. Sweep the apartment, I said to Ethan. Then meet us at Linda Crow's office. Mia. Let's go, Clara. Maybe we should wait. Mia began, her eyes on the text. No. I cut her off. No more waiting. He wants me to be careful, to second guess. I looked at the text one last time, then deleted it. My next move is to take the whole board. And I'm doing it now. I walked out of Mia's apartment, not looking back. The morning sun was bright, harsh. The city streets were loud, alive with normal people living normal lives. I felt separate from it all. A creature of pure purpose moving through a world that had temporarily lost its color and sound. The grief, the betrayal, the fear. They were still there. In the hollow places. But they were fuel now. Fuel for the reckoning. We had the confession. We had the evidence. We had the enemy's name now. It was time to lawyer the hell up. Linda Crow's office was a study in controlled, expensive intimidation. It wasn't the largest space in the midtown skyscraper, but it held a certain gravitational pull. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a dizzying view of Central Park. A serene, green counterpoint to the steel and glass canyons. The furnishings were minimalist and severe, a vast, polished ebony desk. 2 low-slung leather chairs for visitors that were deliberately uncomfortable. And a single, dramatic piece of abstract art on the far wall that looked like a black hole rendered in oil paint. Linda herself matched the decor. In her late 50s. With a razor-sharp silver bob and a stare that could freeze mercury. She was the most feared and sought after divorce attorney in the city. She'd represented me against Mark not out of any particular affection, but because, as she'd put it at our first meeting, I despise men who think prenups are a license to steal. It's bad for business. Mia and I sat in the punishing chairs. The silence broken only by the soft whir of a hidden air filtration system. I'd just spent the last 45 minutes laying it all out. The wedding. The public accusation. The fake evidence. The patio conversation. The old phone and its trove of recordings. Ethan's discoveries about Leopold Stern. The shell company. The financial trail. And finally, the spoofed call to Daniel and his damning, panicked confession. I'd played the key clips on the old iPhone, its tinny speaker filling the pristine room with Mark's cold calculations, Isabel's venom, and Daniel's desperate, whimpering admissions. Linda had listened without a single interruption, her hands steepled under her chin, her eyes fixed on a point just over my left shoulder. She hadn't taken a note. When I finished, the silence stretched, thick and heavy. Finally, she leaned forward, the leather of her chair sighing. Well, she said, her voice a dry, precise instrument. That is the most brazen, convoluted, and frankly stupid piece of matrimonial chicanery I have encountered in 32 years of practice. A faint, icy smile touched her lips. Congratulations, Clara. You've managed to marry a man who is not only a cheat, but a criminal mastermind of breathtaking ineptitude. He hired a professional. Mia pointed out, her arms crossed. He hired a thug with a fancy title and a British accent. The methodology is professional. The objective, to tank a multi-million-dollar divorce settlement by turning the plaintiff's own family against her in a public spectacle. is the kind of hubris that fills prison libraries. Linda's eyes flicked to me. You understand what you have here, leverage. I said. The word feeling solid in my mouth, nuclear leverage. She corrected. We're no longer negotiating a divorce settlement. We are now in the realm of civil racketeering, criminal conspiracy, wire fraud, and defamation. Your ex-husband, your sister, and her fiancé have handed you, on a silver platter, the means to not only take everything you were originally entitled to, but to sue them into the next geological epoch for intentional infliction of emotional distress, tortious interference, and punitive damages so high they'll be paying you in loose change found in their sofa cushions for the rest of their natural lives. She paused. And that's before we discuss the bar complaint against Mr. Shaw, or the criminal referrals to the district attorney and possibly the FBI. Given the interstate aspects of the fraud and the involvement of a foreign national engaged in criminal activity, the scale of it was still difficult to grasp. I'd wanted vindication. I'd wanted the truth to be known. I hadn't fully comprehended the legal avalanche I was about to trigger. What about Stern? Mia asked. The ghost. Linda's smile vanished. Him. We handle with gloves. A man like that doesn't leave a direct trail. He'll have deniability. The contract, if it exists, will be with a shell of a shell. The payment will be laundered beyond easy retrieval. Proving his involvement to a criminal standard will be difficult. But we don't need to prove it in court to use it. The threat of exposure, of dragging his discreet firm into the light of a messy, public, high-profile American trial, is a weapon. He's in the business of staying in the shadows. We can make his life very illuminated. She made a note on a legal pad. The first one she'd taken. I'll have my investigator start a dossier. We'll find his pressure points. She turned her laser focus back to me. Now, your family. Your parents. What do you want from them? The question was a bucket of ice water. I'd been thinking in terms of legal strategies and financial penalties. Not about my mother and father. I don't know. I admitted. The cold certainty faltering for a second. They believed her. They threw me out. They were manipulated. Linda said. Not unkindly. But with the dispassion of a surgeon describing a tumor. But their complicity, their willingness to believe the worst of you, is a fact. It is also a vulnerability for them. Their public humiliation is currently acute. Their social standing, which I gather is important to them, is in tatters. They will be desperate to contain the damage. This gives you leverage there, as well. I don't want to leverage my parents, I said. The words tasting sour. Then you're in the wrong room. Clara. Linda said bluntly. This is a war. Your ex-husband declared it. Your sister enlisted. Your parents, willingly or not, manned the ramparts against you. You can choose not to fire back. But if you don't, they win. Mark keeps his money. Isabel and Daniel suffer no lasting consequences. Your parents will, in time, forgive Isabel. Because it's easier than facing their own failings. And you will be the family ghost. The difficult one. The one who couldn't let it go. Is that the outcome you want? The image was painfully clear. The narrative rewriting itself already. Smoothing over the ugly parts. Making me the outlier once more. No. I said. My voice firm. It's not good. Then here is what we do. First, I will have a forensic accountant dissect the Eathled Holdings trail and tie it directly to Mark's fund. We'll file an emergency motion to freeze his assets and the assets of the shell company. Second, I will draft a civil complaint so devastating that Mark's lawyers will get hives just reading the table of contents. It will name Mark, Daniel, Isabel, and every corporate entity we can link to them. We will serve it publicly, with great fanfare. Third, we will take your recorded evidence, The wedding confession and the call with Daniel. To the district attorney's office. I have friends there. They'll be very interested in a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. She leaned back. As for your parents, you will not contact them. You will let them stew. Let the shame and the fear eat at them. When they finally reach a point of genuine, abject contrition, and they will, because the alternative is social and financial oblivion, then, and only then, will you dictate the terms of any future relationship, if you want one at all. It was brutal. Clinical. It turned human relationships into tactical maneuvers. But as I sat there, the ghost of my sister's triumphant smirk flashing behind my eyes, I knew it was the only way. The old way. The way of being the bigger person. Of smoothing things over. Of keeping the peace. Had led me here. To this lawyer's office. A refugee from my own life. Do it. I said. Linda gave a single, sharp nod. Excellent. I'll have the initial filings ready by end of day tomorrow. In the meantime, go somewhere safe. Not your apartment. Mark and this stern character are unpredictable. Mia. You'll stay with her. I'm not letting her out of my sight. Mia said. Good. Use cash for everything. Assume your electronic devices are compromised. Your cousin, the hacker, he seems competent. Have him do a deep sweep of your phones. Your laptops. Now. She stood, signaling the meeting was over. Clara. You did the hard part. You got the truth. Now. Let me do what I'm good at. I'm going to make them wish they'd never heard your name. Yes, we rode the elevator down in silence. The enormity of the decision settled on me. There was no going back. I had just authorized a legal scorched earth campaign against my ex-husband, my sister, and the man she'd married. My parents were collateral damage. My family, as I'd known it, was officially, terminally over. My phone buzzed. My real phone, which I'd powered on for the first time since the wedding. A cascade of notifications flooded the screen. Dozens of missed calls. Scores of texts. I scrolled. My heart a cold stone in my chest. Dad, 12 voicemails. Mom, 23 voicemails. Aunt Lydia, 1 text. Clara. Call me. We need to talk family. Cousin Chloe, 3 texts. OMG, are you okay? The wedding was crazy. Unknown number. Stern, enjoy your meeting with Ms. Crow. A predictable move. The board is larger than you perceive. LSI stopped breathing. Mia peered over my shoulder. How does he know that? Does he have a tap on Linda's office? He's guessing. I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. He knows I have evidence. He knows I'd go to a lawyer. He's trying to get in my head. But the timing was uncanny. He'd known about the call to Daniel. Now this. The sense of being watched. Of moving on a board where he could see all the pieces. Was oppressive. We need to get off the grid. Now. Mia said. Hailing a cab. Ethan's at my place doing the sweep. We'll grab go bags and get a room somewhere under a fake name. Cash only. The cab ride was a blur. My mind was a split screen. One side scrolling through the legal annihilation Linda was preparing. The other fixated on Stern's text. The board is larger than you perceive. What did that mean? What was I missing at Mia's apartment? Ethan was in full techno-thriller mode. He had devices plugged into Reuters, a Spectrum analyzer humming, and was peering under cushions with a flashlight. Place is clean. As far as I can tell, he reported. No obvious bugs. But your phones. Clara. Your iPhone has 2 tracking spyware apps installed that didn't come from the App Store. They're well hidden. They've been there for at least 3 months. They'd have access to your location. Your calls. Your texts. Your microphone. 3 months. Since before the wedding. Since around the time Mark's settlement offers had gotten aggressive. Stern had been inside my pocket. listening to my life. Can you remove them? I can. But he'll know the moment I do. It'll tip him off that we're onto him. Leave them. I said. A new, reckless idea forming. But can you feed them false information? Fake location data? Corrupt the audio feed? Ethan's eyes lit up. Now you're talking. I can create a spoofed environment. Make it look like you're at home, scrolling through Netflix, while you're actually across town. It'll take some time. But yeah, I can build a cage for his spyware.do it. And Mia. We're not hiding. We're going to the one place they'd never expect me to go. Where? The Greenwich Country Club. I left something in the bridal suite. The country club in the harsh light of a Monday afternoon was a different beast. The grand tent was gone. The lawn scarred by footprints and tire tracks. A team of cleaners in stark white uniforms moved like ghosts through the main building, erasing all traces of the Saturday night catastrophe. The air smelled of bleach and disappointment. The front desk manager, a pinched-faced woman named Beverly who remembered me from 1,000 family events, looked like she'd seen a ghost when I walked in. Ms. Thorne. We weren't expecting. Is everything? I left a personal item in the Magnolia suite on Saturday. I said. My voice smooth. Polite. The voice of a woman who hadn't had her life exploded in this very building 48 hours prior. A piece of jewelry. Sentimental value. I'd like to check if it was turned in. Flustered, Beverly handed me a keycard. Of course. The suite hasn't been cleaned yet. The family, there was a request to leave it. For a few days. The family. My parents. Probably hoping to salvage something. Or too ashamed to face the cleanup. Thank you. The hallway to the bridal suite was silent. Carpet lush underfoot. I used the keycard. The door clicked open. The scene inside was a frozen moment of catastrophe. It looked less like a room and more like the aftermath of a storm. Empty champagne bottles lay on their sides on the plush carpet. A chair was overturned. The vanity mirror was spiderwebbed with a crack. A small, dark stain at its center that might have been dried blood or lipstick. Isabel's wedding dress was a puddle of ruined silk and lace in the middle of the floor. One sleeve torn clean off. The air was thick with the cloying scent of stale perfume, champagne, and despair. This wasn't just cleaning that had been delayed. This was a crime scene preserved. I walked in. My heart a dull drum. I wasn't here for jewelry. I was here for context. For the unvarnished aftermath of my victory. I needed to see it. On the dressing table, amidst a jumble of crushed makeup compacts and hairpins, lay a familiar, discarded phone. Isabel's backup phone. The one she'd used to display the evidence. I picked it up. The screen was dark. Dead. I slipped it into my pocket. Evidence. A sound from the attached bedroom. A soft, wet sob. I went still. Then, slowly, I pushed the half-open door wider. My mother was sitting on the stripped bed, still wearing the same navy blue mother of the bride dress from Saturday. It was wrinkled, stained. She held a wad of tissues in one hand, a mostly empty bottle of club brand vodka in the other. Her face, when she looked up, was a ruin of smeared mascara and puffy, red devastation. She looked 10 years older for a long moment. We just stared at each other. The woman who had shushed me, who had chosen peace over truth, and the daughter she had sacrificed to get it. Clara. She breathed. The word a broken thing. The vodka bottle slipped from her fingers, thudding dully on the carpet. You came back. I came for my earring. I said. The lie automatic. A shield. My voice sounded strange in the thick quiet. A harsh, ragged laugh escaped her. Earring. Of course. She wiped at her face with the tissue, smearing the mess further. Your father is at the hospital. Stress-induced arrhythmia. They're keeping him overnight for observation. She said it like she was reporting the weather. He couldn't breathe after you left. The shame. He said. The shame was a physical weight on his chest. I said nothing. The image of my father, proud and stoic, laid low in a hospital bed, should have stirred something. Pity. Perhaps. But the ice held. He had pointed to the door. He had told me to leave. Isabel is gone. My mother continued, her gaze drifting to the wrecked dress on the floor. Daniel took her. Or she took him. I don't know. They were screaming. Such awful, hateful things. He called her a spoiled, psychotic bitch. She said he was a limp, bankrupt coward. They left in separate cars. The marriage. I don't know if it even legally exists anymore. I don't care. The last sentence was uttered with a shocking, hollow finality. She looked back at me, her eyes pleading. You had a recording. All that time. You knew what they were planning. I suspected. I tried to tell you. On the patio. You told me not to start drama. She flinched as if struck. I know. Oh, God. Clara. I know. I wanted the day to be perfect. For her. She's always needed things to be perfect so much more than you did. You were always so strong. So capable. You didn't need us the way she did. It was the oldest, most toxic refrain of my life. My strength was my flaw. My independence was a rejection. My ability to withstand pain was an invitation to inflict more of it. So you sacrificed the strong one to appease the weak one. I said. The words dropping like stones. You let her crucify me in front of everyone we know because it was easier than dealing with her tantrum. Because you'd rather have a broken daughter than a difficult day. No. The word was a wail. Torn from deep within her. She lurched to her feet. Unsteady. That's not it. I didn't know. I didn't believe she could, that it was all a plot. With Mark. My God. Mark. How could he? After everything what? Mom. I took a step forward. The cold fury finally breaking through. Hot and sharp. After he cheated on me. After he lied and manipulated. After he proved exactly who he was. You all acted like my divorce was a personal failing. An embarrassment. You welcomed him at Christmas. You told me I should try harder. You created an environment where Isabel looked at what happened to me and thought, I can do better. I'll take the ex-boyfriend. I'll have the perfect wedding. And I'll make sure everyone sees how much better I am. And when that wasn't enough, when she and her perfect husband needed money, they decided to finish the job Mark started. They decided to erase me. And you handed them the knife. My mother was shaking her head. Tears streaming silently now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Clara. We failed you. I failed you. I'm your mother. I was supposed to protect you. And I chose. I chose the path of least resistance. I chose the fairy tale over my own child. She sank back onto the bed. Her body curling in on itself. Can you ever forgive me? The question hung in the poisoned air. The part of me that was still a little girl. The part that had spent a lifetime longing for the unconditional love and belief that flowed so freely to Isabel. Wanted to say yes. Wanted to go to her. To be held. To have my mother make it better. But the woman I was now. The woman who had stood alone in a room of 200 enemies. Who had fought her way to the truth with a cracked phone and sheer defiance. Knew that forgiveness wasn't a switch to be flipped. It wasn't a band-aid for a severed limb. I don't know. I said. And the honesty of it was more brutal than any lie. I don't know if I can. Or if I should. What you and Dad did, it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A series of choices. Over years. That led you to that tent. To believing her over me. That doesn't get fixed with an apology. She nodded. A slow, terrible acceptance in the gesture. What happens now? She whispered now. My lawyer files suits against Mark. Isabel. And Daniel. For conspiracy. fraud, defamation. The evidence is overwhelming. They will be ruined. Financially and professionally. There will be criminal investigations. It will be public. It will be ugly. Your social circle will dissect every detail. The name Thorne will be synonymous with scandal for a long time. She absorbed this. Her face pale. And us. Your father and me. I looked at this broken woman in the ruins of her golden child's fantasy. The mother I'd known was gone. Shattered along with the vanity mirror. What was left was a stranger. Hollowed out by the consequences of her own failings. That's up to you. I said finally. You can stand by Isabel. You can try to weather the storm with her. Or you can do the hard, painful work of understanding why you did what you did. Of seeing me. Really seeing me. Not as the strong one. Not as the difficult one. But as your daughter. And maybe, in a year, or 5, or 10, we can see if there's anything left to build from. But it won't be the same. It can never be the same. I turned and walked out of the bedroom. Out of the suite. Leaving her alone in the wreckage. I didn't look back. In the silent hallway. I leaned against the wall. My legs trembling. The confrontation had taken everything I had. From my pocket. I pulled the dead phone I'd taken from the vanity. A piece of the puzzle. A trophy from the battlefield. As I walked back through the hushed, sanitized halls of the country club. A strange calm settled over me. The reckoning wasn't over. It was just beginning. The legal machinery was grinding to life. My family was in ashes. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew exactly who I was. I was Clara Thorne. I was the one who survived. I was the one with the evidence, and I was just getting started. The world fractured into two distinct, parallel realities. In one, I was a ghost. I moved between Mia's apartment, a nondescript boutique hotel in Chelsea booked under her name with cash, and Linda Crow's war room, a spectre in my own life. I existed on a diet of black coffee, takeout eaten in silence, and the cold fuel of purpose. The emotional tsunami I'd held back with the ice wall of logic and strategy lapped at the edges. But I refused to let it in. Not yet. Grief was a luxury for the safe. I was in a fight for my financial life. My reputation. And, if Stern's veiled threats were to be believed, my physical safety. The other reality. The one broadcast across society pages. Whispered about at charity galas. And dissected in group texts. My life was a public bonfire. Linda Crow, true to her word, had moved with terrifying speed and theatrical flair. The first salvo was the civil complaint. It didn't just land on Mark's and Daniel's lawyers' desks, it was delivered by process servers to their offices. Their clubs. And, in a particularly vicious stroke, to the Greenwich Country Club during a member guest tournament. Ensuring a fresh wave of gossip. The document was a masterpiece of legal destruction. 74 pages detailing a malicious conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. It named Mark, Daniel, Isabel, the shell company Eatheld Holdings, Anne, as a John Doe, Leopold Stern and his firm. The attached exhibits were a curated selection, transcripts of the most damning parts of the wedding recording and the spoofed call with Daniel. The AI-generated image of Stern with a caption identifying him, and a flowchart Ethan had made tracing the money from Mark's fund to Eatheld to a recent large payment to a Cayman Islands account linked to a known Capstone Strategic Solutions front. The second salvo was the emergency motion to freeze assets. A judge, after a private ex-parte hearing where Linda played excerpts of Daniel admitting to the conspiracy for financial gain, granted it. Overnight, Mark's access to his private equity fund was restricted. Daniel's firm accounts were frozen. The loan was now evidence. Not a lifeline, the third. And most public. Salvo was a press release from Linda's firm. A model of understated lethality. It didn't reveal the sordid details. But it confirmed the filing of a major civil RICO and fraud action stemming from an elaborate plot involving forged evidence, surveillance, and character assassination orchestrated by the plaintiff's ex-husband and her own family members to influence divorce proceedings. It mentioned ongoing referrals to criminal authorities. The Post and the Daily News ran with it immediately. Societe scandal, heiress set up in wedding smear. Divorce war goes nuclear, bugs, spies, and sisterly betrayal. My phone, the old one, became a portal to the chaos. Voicemails from reporters, their voices a mix of faux sympathy and naked hunger for quotes. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize, former friends expressing shock. Distant relatives offering brittle support. A few simply saying you go, girl. The world had chosen sides. And the tide, fueled by the sensational story and Linda's masterful narrative control, had turned decisively in my favor. I was no longer the jealous sister, I was the wronged woman. The survivor of a cinematic betrayal. I listened to none of the voicemails. I answered none of the texts. I followed Linda's command, total media blackout. Let the story and the legal filings speak for themselves. Let them twist in the wind. Why parents called every day, multiple times a day. I let Mia screen them. Their messages, which she relayed to me, evolved from panicked pleas, we have to fix this, to horrified realizations, the papers, they're saying such things, to finally, a shattered acceptance, tell her we understand. We'll do whatever she wants. Just, tell her we love her. I didn't call back. The ice held. The only communication that mattered came on the fourth day. A text to my real phone. The one Ethan had caged with false data. Daniel, we need to talk. I'll talk. I'll give you everything. Names. Dates. Wires. The works. I want immunity. A deal. I can't go to prison. Meet me. Neutral ground. The Oyster Bar. Grand Central. Noon tomorrow. Come alone. I showed it to Mia and Ethan in the hotel room. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the room service trays and the tangle of cables from Ethan's equipment. It's a trap. Mia said immediately. He's setting you up. Or Stern is, probably. I agreed. But it's also an opportunity. He's the weak link. If he's willing to flip, to give us Stern on a platter, we don't go. Ethan said, not looking up from his laptop. We send a proxy. Or we record it remotely. I can hack the security cameras at the Oyster Bar. Audio is crap. But I can clean it up. You stay here. He said, come alone. He'll be spooked if I send a lawyer. He needs to think he's dealing with me. Personally. That he can manipulate me. Appeal to my, what? My pity. I shook my head. I'll go. But not alone. And not unprotected. The plan we devised was simple. I would go. I would wear a wire. A tiny, high-definition recorder Ethan sourced from a counter-surveillance shop that asked no questions. Mia would be at the far end of the iconic, vaulted dining room, disguised in a brunette wig and large glasses, watching. Ethan would be in a van outside, monitoring the feed, ready to call in a panic if anything went wrong. We'd have a safe word, oysters. If I said it. Mia and Ethan would create a diversion the next day at 11:55 a.m. I walked into the bustling cathedral of Grand Central Terminal. The familiar, comforting roar of the crowd. The golden glow of the information board. The celestial mural on the ceiling. It was a world of normal, rushing people. A stark contrast to the silent, high-stakes drama I was walking into. I descended the stairs to the Oyster Bar, the distinctive Guastavino tile arches feeling suddenly ominous. Like the ribs of a great beast. I spotted Daniel immediately. He was at a small, two-person table in a shadowy corner, away from the main flow of the lunch crowd. He looked like hell. His suit was rumpled. His face gaunt. 2 days of stubble shading his jaw. He clutched a glass of water. His knuckles white. He saw me and his eyes widened. A rabbit seeing a wolf. He'd expected me to look broken. I was dressed in a simple, severe black pantsuit. My hair pulled back. My face clean of makeup. I looked. I hoped. Like what I was, the plaintiff. The accuser. I slid into the seat across from him. The tiny recorder in my bra felt like a brand. Daniel, Clara. He cleared his throat. His eyes darting around. You came. Thank you. You said you had something to say. Say it, right to it. Okay. He took a shaky sip of water. I'm done. I'm out. I can't. The Bar Association has suspended my license pending investigation. My partners have voted to expel me. The firm is dead. The frozen assets. I can't pay my mortgage. Mark's loan is gone. Recalled as fraudulent. I have nothing. His voice broke. Isabel left. She's at a spa in Arizona. Refusing my calls. She blames me for everything. For it not working. I felt nothing. No schadenfreude. No pity. Just a cold assessment of a broken instrument. You made your choices. Daniel. You had a dozen off-ramps. You took none of them. I was desperate. He hissed. Leaning forward. You don't understand the pressure. The firm was a house of cards. Mark came to me. A lifeline. And stern. He made it sound so clean. So surgical. A little nudge. A rumor. He said you were tough. That you'd bounce back. He said it was just business. And the wedding? The public execution? Was that just businesses too? Or was that Isabel's idea of surgery? He flinched. That was her. She saw the materials Stern prepared. The texts. The photo mock-ups. And she got this gleam in her eye. She said a whisper wasn't enough. She wanted a declaration. A coronation of her victory and your ruin. All in one shot. Stern advised against it. Said it was too flashy. Too high risk. But Mark loved the idea. He said it was perfect. Maximum impact. So Stern made it happen. He's a fucking artist. That guy. The way he synced the photo display. The way he trailed off. Seeing my expression. I was listening. A statue. A recording device. I'll testify. He blurted out. Against Mark. Against Stern. I'll give you the bank records. The encrypted chat logs. I saved screenshots. I'm not an idiot. I'll wear a wire for you. Whatever you want. Just get the DA to promise me no prison time. And immunity from the bar. I'll take disbarment. But I can't have a felony. What do you have on Stern? I asked. Specifically, everything. The initial proposal. His fee structure. $1.5 million. Plus expenses. The instructions for the surveillance on you. The digital files of the fabricated evidence before they were cleaned. The IP addresses of the servers used to send the spoofed texts, which he bragged were routed through Russia but can probably be traced back to a VPN he owns. I have a video call recording. From 2 months ago. Mark. Me. Isabel. And Stern. Planning it all. My heart skipped a beat. A video recording. That was the smoking gun. The thing that could tie Stern directly. Visually. To the conspiracy. Where is it? In a safe deposit box. Under a different name. I'll give you the key. The info. Today. Right now. He was trembling with desperate eagerness. Just get me the deal. Clara. Please. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom. You can bury them. All of them. I studied him. The fear was real. The betrayal of his co-conspirators was complete. He was offering me everything. It was almost too good. Why the sudden attack of conscience? Daniel, you didn't seem too bothered by any of this until the walls started closing in. His face crumpled. My mother, he whispered, looking down at his hands. She read about it in the Times. The lawsuit. She called me. She didn't yell. She just cried. She asked me how the boy she raised, the one who wanted to be Atticus Finch, could do something so evil to anyone, let alone to family. A single tear tracked through the stubble on his cheek. She's right. I lost myself. I became this thing. I just want it to stop. It might have been an act, a final, manipulative play. But the shame in his eyes looked real. The desire to stop the pain, to make it end, was a language I understood intimately. I'll take what you have, I said. I'll give it to my lawyer and the DA. I'll tell them you're cooperating. I can't promise you anything, but your cooperation will be noted. It's the only card you have left to play. He nodded. A jerky, grateful movement. He pulled a small, unmarked envelope from his inside jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Key, box number, bank details, passphrase for the digital files on the encrypted drive inside. It's all there. I took the envelope. It felt heavy with finality. Don't leave the city. The DA will want to talk to you soon. I stood to leave. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. Clara, for what it's worth. Which is nothing. I am sorry. For all of it. What we did to you, it was monstrous. I looked down at him. This ruined man in the ruins of his own making. I know, I said. And I walked away. I met Mia outside by the information board. We walked quickly, not speaking, until we were 2 blocks away, then ducked into a coffee shop. In the bathroom, I handed her the recorder and the envelope. Get this to Ethan. He needs to image the drive immediately and get copies to Linda. Tell her about the video. What about you? I'm going to see my father. The private hospital room smelled of antiseptic and wilted flowers. My father lay propped up on pillows, and 4 in his arm. A heart monitor beeping a slow, steady rhythm beside him. He looked small in the bed. The lines on his face etched deeper, his skin a sickly grey. The formidable patriarch was gone, replaced by a fragile, old man. Mother was dozing in a chair by the window, still in the same clothes from the country club, if possible looking even more ravaged. She jerked awake as I entered, her hand flying to her chest. Clara. The word was a prayer and a curse. My father's eyes opened. They focused on me, and a complex storm of emotions passed through them. Shame, fear, a dawning, awful relief. You came. I came to tell you it's over, I said, my voice quiet in the hushed room. I didn't sit. Daniel is flipping. He's giving evidence against Mark and Stern. There's a video recording of them all planning it. The criminal case is now a certainty. The civil case is a formality. They will be destroyed. My mother made a small, wounded sound. A video. They filmed themselves. They were arrogant, I said. They thought they were untouchable. My father closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were wet. And us? The same question my mother had asked. Stripped bare of all pretense. That depends. The lawsuit's name Isabel. The evidence implicates her as a willing, eager participant. She will be deposed. She may be charged as an accessory. Her life, as she knew it, is over. I let that hang. You can choose to stand by her through that, to fund her defense, to be photographed leaving a courthouse with her, to tie the Thorne name to hers forever in this scandal. Or you can choose to separate yourselves, to condemn her actions, publicly and unequivocally, To side with the truth.it was the brutal, binary choice Linda had outlined. Family loyalty versus moral survival. My mother was crying silently. My father stared at the ceiling, a single tear tracing a path into his hairline. She's our daughter, he whispered. So am I said. And the simple truth of it echoed in the sterile room. The heart monitor beeped steadily. The weight of a lifetime of choices, of tacit approvals, of willful blindness, pressed down on them. We'll issue a statement, my father said finally, his voice ancient. Through our lawyer, we will express our profound devastation at the actions of our daughter Isabel and her husband. We will fully support you, Clara, in your pursuit of justice. And we will be seeking professional help to understand our own failings in this tragedy. He looked at me, his eyes begging for understanding, for a shred of absolution. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's what we have. It was a surrender, a white flag. They were choosing the only viable path left, the one that saved what little could be saved, themselves. And perhaps, one distant day, a relationship with me. It was pragmatic. It was cowardly. It was, I realized, the most honest thing they'd ever done. I nodded. Once. I'll have my lawyer send the draft to yours for approval. I turned to leave. Clara, my mother called out, her voice ragged. Where will you go? I paused at the door. Forward, I said. And I left them in the quiet ruin of their lives back at the hotel. The mood was electric. Ethan had retrieved the drive from the safe deposit box. On it was a digital treasure trove, spreadsheets of payments, encrypted chat logs, and, crucially, a 47-minute Zoom recording. We gathered around Ethan's laptop. The room dark save for the screen's glow. He hit play. There they were, in a Brady Bunch-style grid. Mark, in his home office, looking relaxed, sipping scotch. Daniel, in what looked like his study, nervous. Isabel, in our parents' sunroom, vibrantly excited, like she was planning a surprise party. And in the fourth square, Leopold Stern. He was in a sleek, modern space that could have been anywhere. He was wearing a charcoal sweater, looking like a university professor about to give a lecture. The audio was crisp. Stern laid out the plan with chilling detachment. Phase 1. Establish a pattern of inappropriate contact. Spoofed text messages, keyed to times of known stress or loneliness for the subject. We're building a subconscious narrative of obsession. He looked at Isabel. You, my dear, will be the discoverer of this pattern. The wounded fiancé. Isabel nodded, her eyes shining. I can cry on cue. I took a class. Mark chuckled. Perfect. Stern continued. Phase 2. Visual corroboration. We have a contractor who resembles Clara from behind. We'll get the coat, the hair. A staged encounter with Daniel, captured discreetly. The image will be digitally perfected. It will withstand casual scrutiny. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. And the wedding? The public thing? Is that necessary? It is the accelerant, Stern said smoothly. A private scandal can be managed, contained. A public, humiliating denunciation, especially one that paints Clara as so unhinged she would sabotage her own sister's wedding, creates a social and emotional nuclear winter. It isolates her completely. No family support. Limited public sympathy. Her position in the divorce evaporates. The judge will see a destabilizing force, not a wronged partner. He looked at Mark. It also, I assume, provides a certain poetic satisfaction. Mark's smile was thin and cruel. It does. I want to do the speech, Isabel said, leaning forward. I want to look her in the eye when I say it. Then you shall, Stern said, as if granting a child's wish. We'll craft the wording. The evidence will be presented for maximum impact. Remember, the goal is not to convince a court of law, but the court of public opinion and familial loyalty. We are engineering a verdict of guilt by overwhelming emotional force. They discussed money, timetables, contingencies. It was a board meeting for a particularly vile product launch. Watching it, I felt divorced from my own body. These were cartoon villains, discussing the demolition of my life as if it were a logistical puzzle. The video ended. The room was silent. We have him. Mia breathed. We have them all. My phone buzzed. A new text. From the unknown number. Unknown number. The safe deposit box was inelegant. Ms. Thorne. A predictable move from a predictable man. The video is, unfortunately for you, inadmissible. Obtained under duress. Coercion promised. A fruit of the poisoned tree. But I admire your tenacity. The game was more interesting than anticipated. We shall not meet again. Do enjoy your victory. It has cost you everything that mattered. Ls he knew about the box. He'd been watching Daniel. Or he'd anticipated this move. And he was right about the admissibility. The video might be challenged. But it didn't matter. It wasn't for a courtroom. It was for me. It was the final, incontrovertible truth. It was for the district attorney, who could use it to secure other evidence. It was for my parents, if they ever wavered. It was the ghost of my sister's malice. Captured forever. I typed a reply. My fingers steadied. Me. It cost me nothing that was ever truly mine. You were just the hired help. The game is over. You lost. Don't contact me again. I blocked the number. I handed the phone to Ethan. Burn it. Scrub it. Then get me a new one. I walked to the window, looking out at the city. The afternoon sun was slanting across the skyline, painting the glass towers in fire and gold. The ice inside me. The glacier that had held me together through the wedding. The confrontation. The legal maneuvers. Began to thaw. Not into a flood, but a slow, steady melt. The grief. The betrayal. The loss. They were there. Waiting. I could feel them now. A vast, dark ocean at the edge of my awareness. I would have to swim in it soon. But not yet for now. I had won. The reckoning was complete. The liars were exposed. The conspirators were broken. The truth was out. I had my life back. It was a scorched plain. Empty and quiet. But it was mine. And for the first time in a very long time, it was built on a foundation of something solid. The truth, victory, I discovered, had a specific, hollow taste. It was the flavor of cold coffee drunk in a silent, sterile hotel room at 3 a.m. The adrenaline of the hunt replaced by a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. The news cycle. Having feasted on the scandal for a glorious, voracious week, was moving on. The Post had a new heiress in trouble. The DA's office issued a terse statement confirming an ongoing investigation into matters pertaining to fraud and conspiracy, which was legal speak for a 5-alarm fire in Mark's and Daniel's lives. The social world had absorbed the shock, metabolized it into 100 cautionary tales and judgmental whispers, and turned its hungry eyes elsewhere. The ice that had sustained me finally cracked. In the quiet aftermath of the legal and public storm, the delayed tsunami of emotion hit. It didn't come as a single, dramatic wave, but as a slow, relentless seep, flooding the compartments I'd so carefully constructed. It was the smell of Mia's laundry detergent, which was the same as my mother's. That would make my throat close up. It was seeing a father and daughter laughing on a park bench through the hotel window, a sight so mundane it felt like a physical blow. It was waking from a dream where Isabel was 6 years old again, demanding I read her a story, and the crushing loneliness upon opening my eyes to a reality where that little girl was a stranger who had tried to destroy me. Grief. it turned out, was not a singular entity. It was a nested set of losses. I grieved the family I'd thought I had, the flawed but loving unit of my childhood. I grieved the sister who was gone, perhaps had never truly existed beyond the confines of my own hopeful projection. I grieved the years lost to a marriage that had been a gilded cage, and the years spent afterward believing I was the one who'd broken the lock. Most of all, I grieved my own naivete, the part of me that had believed, on some fundamental level, that blood was a talisman against true evil. Mia handled me with the gentle, no-nonsense care of a trauma nurse. She didn't try to cheer me up. She made tea. She put on terrible reality TV and sat with me in silence. She fielded the calls that still trickled in. Reporters looking for a follow-up. A few brave souls from my old life testing the waters. And ran interference with a ferocity that was both touching and terrifying. Ethan, his part in the digital sleuthing largely complete, had gone back to Boston. But he'd left behind a custom-built, encrypted laptop for me and a standing offer to digitally disappear anyone who bothered me. He checked in daily with bizarre memes and links to obscure cybersecurity news. His way of saying he was there. My parents honored their public separation. Their lawyer issued the statement, exactly as drafted by Linda's office, a masterpiece of contrition that stopped just short of legally admitting culpability but made their position brutally clear. They expressed utter devastation at Isabel's actions, offered full and unwavering support to me, and announced a period of private reflection and atonement. It was printed in the Times, a humiliating epitaph for their social standing. I knew what it cost them. The part of me that was still their daughter ached for their public shame. The part that had survived the tent pushed that ache aside. They had chosen their path. Now they walked it. Isabel had vanished. Not literally. Her credit cards showed spas in Arizona and then a boutique hotel in Costa Rica. But from my life. And from the spotlight. Her social media, once a curated gallery of her perfect life, had been deleted. Daniel, under the looming specter of criminal charges and with the Bar Association's disciplinary hearing scheduled, was a ghost in the city, holed up in a friend's apartment. His cooperation with the DA the only thread keeping him from total freefall. Mark, through his lawyers, was fighting. He was claiming the recordings were illegal, that the conspiracy was a fantasy spun by a vengeful ex-wife, that the payments to Ethel were legitimate investments. It was a rearguard action. Desperate and costly. Linda Crow relished it. Let him spend his last UN frozen dollars on legal fees. She'd said with grim satisfaction during our last call, it just means less for him to hide when we win. And Leopold Stern? He was true to his word. After his final text, he vanished. Ethan, in a fit of obsessive curiosity, tried to track him. The trail went cold in Zurich. The man was a professional ghost. He'd lost a round, an expensive one for his clients, and had simply folded his tent and slipped away into the shadows from whence he came. His silence was more unnerving than any threat. It was the silence of a predator that knows there will be other prey. Other games. My own life was in suspension. I couldn't go back to my apartment. The thought of those rooms, filled with the ghost of my old life and the lingering violation of Stern's surveillance, made my skin crawl. My design business was on hold. Mia was handling our clients with a story about a severe family emergency, which was the understatement of the century. I was a woman living out of a suitcase in a hotel. My past in ashes. My future a blank. Terrifying. Page.it was a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the wedding. When the first crack of light appeared, I was mechanically eating toast, staring at a design magazine without seeing it, when Mia slammed her laptop shut with a decisive snap. Right. That's it. We're leaving. I blinked. Leaving where? Anywhere. Everywhere. We're getting on a plane. Today, Mia. I can't just. You can. Your passport is in your go bag. So is mine. Linda has everything under control. The DA doesn't need you right now. There is literally nothing you have to do except breathe. And you're barely managing that in this depressing room. She stood up. Hands on her hips. You need to not be here. Clara. You need to be somewhere that doesn't smell like hotel bleach and regret. We're going to go somewhere with too much sun. Too much salt water. And no Wi-Fi. I don't want a vacation. I said dully. It's not a vacation. It's a strategic retreat. A change of scenery for your battered psyche. We're not going to find ourselves on a beach. We're going to sit in the sun until you stop looking like you might shatter if someone speaks too loudly. Her expression softened. Please. For me. Let me do this. Let me take you away from all of this. I looked at her. My best friend. Who had stood like a warrior between me and the world. Who had slept on hotel room floors and eaten bad takeout and fought my battles alongside me without a second's hesitation. The least I could do was let her try to help me heal. Where? I asked. My voice small. A slow smile spread across her face. Somewhere Mark would have hated. Somewhere Isabel would have found tacky. Somewhere with zero peonies. We landed in Tulum 16 hours later. The humid jasmine and salt air, a physical shock after the sterile, air-conditioned purgatory of the previous weeks. Mia had rented a small, starkly beautiful concrete villa on a quieter stretch of beach. All clean lines, open air, and the relentless, soothing roar of the Caribbean for the first 2 days. I did nothing. I slept for 12 hours at a stretch. A heavy, dreamless sleep born of pure exhaustion. I sat on the deck and watched the waves. Their endless, mindless rhythm a balm. I ate mangoes and drank cold, cheap beer. I didn't think about lawsuits, or betrayals, or recordings. I thought about the color of the water at different times of day. I thought about the feel of the sun on my skin. I thought about nothing at all. On the third day, I felt a strange, faint itch in my fingers. I found a sketchpad and a charcoal pencil in a drawer. I hadn't drawn for pleasure in years. My work was mood boards, CAD drawings, precise schematics. This was different. I started sketching the curve of a seashell, the fan of a palm leaf, the way the light hit the edge of the concrete plunge pool. It was clumsy, childlike. It felt good. Mia watched me from a hammock, saying nothing, a small smile playing on her lips. On the 5th day, I woke up and the crushing weight on my chest felt a fraction lighter. The grief was still there, a vast, dark presence. But I was no longer drowning in it. I was learning to tread water in its shadow that afternoon. As we walked down the beach, the warm surf washing over our feet, Mia finally broached the unspoken. Have you thought about what you'll do? After, I picked up a piece of sea glass. Green and smooth. Warmed by the sun. Sell the apartment. For sure. Maybe all of it. The furniture. The art, it's all tainted. It's from that life, and the business, I sighed. Tossing the glass back into the surf. I don't know. I love the work. But it's tied to that world. The clients. The galleries. The whole scene. It feels like it belongs to the person I was before. The one who was married to Mark. Who went to family dinners. Who believed in a certain version of her life, so start a new version. Mia said simply. We could rebrand. Take on different projects. Or you could do something completely different. You're Clara Thorne. You just took down a conspiracy with a cracked iPhone and sheer nerve. You can do anything you damn well please. I laughed. The sound strange and welcome in my own ears. When you put it that way, I do. And I'm not just saying it as your friend. I'm saying it as your business partner. You have a vision. Clara. It got a little buried under a pile of other people's bullshit. Now you get to dig it out and polish it up. We walked in silence for a while. The only sound the waves and the distant cry of gulls. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. My parents, I said. The words quiet. They've been sending emails. Through Linda. Not asking for anything. Just updates. My father is out of the hospital. He's seeing a therapist. My mother joined a support group for families in crisis. I made air quotes around the clinical term. They bought a small condo in the city. They sold the house in New Canaan. Mia glanced at me. And I don't know what to do with that. Their penance. Is it real? Or is it just another performance? This time for my benefit. To get back in my good graces. Does it matter? Mia asked. I mean, in the long run, if they're being better people, even if they're doing it for the wrong reasons, leads to them actually becoming better people, is that a bad thing? You don't have to let them back in. You get to decide the terms. Forever. But you can also decide to let the anger go. Not for them. For you. Carrying that shit is heavy. I knew she was right. The anger. The desire for their continued suffering. Was a poison I was drinking myself. It had been necessary fuel for the battle. But the battle was over. I'm not ready to see them. I said. Maybe I never will be. But I can stop actively hoping they're in pain. That's a start. Mia said. Linking her arm through mine that night. As I lay in bed listening to the geckos chirp outside the screen. My new sterile phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text. From an unknown number. But with a 917 area code. New York. My heart, trained by recent trauma, gave a sickening lurch. Stern. Mark, I picked it up. Unknown number. Clara. It's Isabel. Every muscle in my body locked. The air left the room. I stared at the screen. The two words glowing in the dark. Isabel, I know you have no reason to ever read a word I write. Or to believe anything I say. I don't expect you to. I'm in New York. Just for a night. The lawyers. I'm staying at the Lowell. I'm leaving the country tomorrow. Probably for good. There's something I need to say to you. Not to make myself feel better. There's a box. With some things. From when we were kids. Things I took from your room over the years. Like a magpie. A stupid seashell from Maine. Your copy of A Wrinkle in Time with the notes in the margin. That stupid friendship bracelet you made me that I said I lost. I kept them. Like trophies. Or maybe. I don't know. I need to give them back. They're yours. I'll be in the courtyard of the museum. By the fountain. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll leave the box on a bench. I won't be there. You can come or not. I needed you to know. I'm sorry. For all of it. It was always me. It was only ever me. I read the message 5 times. The words blurred. Then sharpened. The raw, unpolished shame in them was so different from her usual performative remorse. The specificity of the items. The seashell from a long-ago family trip. The book we'd both loved. The bracelet. Punctured something deep inside me. They were proof of a connection that had existed before the poison set in. A connection she had perverted but, in her own twisted way, had also preserved. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was stating a fact. I'm sorry. And she was giving something back. Not to earn anything. But because it was mine. I didn't reply. I put the phone down. I lay awake for hours. Watching the shadows of palm fronds dance on the ceiling. The next morning, at 9:55 a.m. New York time, I was sitting at the villa's table. A cup of cooling coffee in front of me. Mia was pretending to read. Watching me over the top of her book. I opened a browser on my laptop. I found the live webcam feed for the Metropolitan Museum's American Wing courtyard. The fountain was there, sparkling in the morning light. The benches around it were empty. A few tourists milled in the background at 10:02 a.m. A figure walked into frame. She was wearing large sunglasses. A simple black dress. Her blonde hair pulled into a severe ponytail. She looked thin. Almost gaunt. She carried a small, unmarked cardboard box. It was Isabel. She didn't look around. She didn't hesitate. She walked straight to a bench directly in view of the camera, placed the box on it, turned, and walked out of the frame. The whole thing took less than 15 seconds. I watched the empty bench. The box sat there. Innocuous. A time capsule from a shipwrecked childhood. I didn't move. I wouldn't send someone to get it. I wouldn't ask for it to be shipped. It could sit there. Or be taken by a cleaner. Or thrown away. Its physical return was irrelevant. The gesture was the thing. The admission. The return of stolen property. However sentimental she had shown up. She had done the one thing she'd promised. And she had said the words. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Mia looked at me. A question in her eyes. She left the box. I said. My voice surprisingly steady. She wasn't there. Mia nodded slowly. Good. I stood up and walked out onto the deck. The sun was high and hot. The sea a breathtaking, impossible blue. The grief was still there. The loss was a permanent scar. But as I looked out at the endless horizon, I felt something else. Something fragile and new pushing up through the ashes. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever, but a beginning time. In the aftermath of a cataclysm. Moves in strange ways. The month in Tulum stretched and contracted. A blur of sun-bleached days and star-heavy nights that felt both infinite and fleeting. The world I'd left behind. The lawsuits. The headlines. The whispered scandals. Receded to a distant, persistent hum. Like the sound of traffic from a high floor. The immediate, jagged edges of the pain were slowly worn smooth by the mundane rhythms of salt water and sleep. We returned to New York on a crisp, blue September morning. The city greeted me with its usual brusque indifference, which was a profound relief. It didn't care about my tragedy or my victory. It just was. A blank slate of noise and motion. Mia and I took a cab from JFK directly to a realtor's office. I signed the papers to list my apartment. Fully furnished. As is. I wanted none of it. The proceeds, once it sold, would join the yet-to-be-determined but assuredly massive settlement from Mark. Financial security, once a point of fierce contention, was now a foregone conclusion. A blood-soaked consolation prize. I felt nothing about it. It was just a number. I moved into Mia's spare bedroom temporarily. But we both knew it wasn't a long-term solution. We needed a new base of operations. One that wasn't haunted by either of our pasts. A week after our return, we found it, a raw, light-filled loft in a converted warehouse in Industry City, Brooklyn. It had soaring ceilings, concrete floors, and views of the harbor. It was brutal and beautiful. A space with no history. We could build our lives. And our business. From the ground up. The first thing we did was paint the entire space a soft, warm white. A cleansing. Then, we built a wall of bookshelves and filled them with design monographs, art books, and novels. A collective immune system against the sterile poison of my old life. We ordered 2 massive, scarred wooden work tables and placed them facing each other in the center of the main room. Partnership, not hierarchy. The business rebrand was Mia's idea. Thorne Rodriguez Interiors was retired. It sounded too much like a law firm, and it carried a name that was now publicly synonymous with scandal. We brainstormed for days, rejecting dozens of options. It should be about the space between things, I said one afternoon, staring at the sunlight cutting a sharp diagonal across the empty floor. The negative space. That's where the truth of a room is. Not in the furniture, but in the air around it. Mia looked up from her sketchpad. Say that again, the space between things. No. The last part. Not in the furniture, but in the air around it. She scribbled. Interval, interval, it's a pause. A space between 2 points. A breath. It's what you create. You don't just fill rooms, Clara. You create pauses. Places for people to breathe. To be. She wrote it in large block letters on a fresh page, interval, and it was perfect. Interval Design Studio. Our new mantra, design for the space between. We built a simple website. No flashy portfolios of past glamour projects. Just a single, powerful image of our new loft. And a statement of purpose I wrote in one feverish sitting. We believe the most essential element of any space is the room it gives you. To breathe. To become. To heal. We design intervals. The first inquiry that came through the new site wasn't from a society matron or a hedge funder. It was from a non-profit that ran safe houses for survivors of domestic violence. They'd read about me. About the wedding scandal. And seen past the salacious headlines to the core of it, a woman rebuilding a safe space from the ground up after a profound violation. They wanted us to redesign their flagship facility. To make it not just functional, but a place that felt like a shield. A sanctuary. An interval of peace. I cried when I read the email. Then I wrote back immediately. Accepting at a rate so far below our old fees it was almost charitable. It felt like the first truly right thing I'd done in years, the legal machinery ground on. A separate universe operating by its own cold, slow laws. Linda Crow was in her element. Mark. Faced with the video evidence Daniel had provided, which, despite Stern's sneer, was deemed admissible as it was Daniel's own recording, not obtained under state coercion. Folded. Facing the certainty of a devastating civil judgment and the high probability of criminal indictment, he settled. The terms were confidential. But the number, when Linda read it to me over a secured line, was so large it seemed abstract. It included the full value of the contested private equity stake, plus punitive damages, plus my legal fees. He was left far from destitute, but severely diminished. The victory was complete and utterly joyless. Daniel, in exchange for his full cooperation and the surrender of his law license, was granted a deal. No prison time, but a lifetime of probation and a felony record. He'd be a financial advisor or a golf pro. Never a lawyer again. He'd vanished from the city. Rumor sending him to Florida. Isabel was not named in the criminal case. Her role, while morally monstrous, was harder to pin to a specific fraud statute. But the civil suit against her proceeded. She defaulted. A judgment was entered against her for a sum that would consume any future inheritance. My parents, adhering to their public stance, did not help her. I heard through the ghostly network of family gossip that she was living in Lisbon, teaching English, living a small, quiet life a universe away from the one she'd plotted for. I never confirmed it. I never tried. My parents. That was the slowest, most complex negotiation. They respected the silence I'd imposed. Their emails, forwarded by Linda, came once a week. They were not love letters or pleas. They were dry, careful updates, as if reporting to a benevolent but distant superior. We met with the therapist. It is challenging. We sold the silver. The auction was satisfactory. Your father has taken up painting. He is terrible at it. The stark, unadorned humility in them was more unsettling than any grand gesture. They were doing the work. Not for me, I believed, but because the alternative, facing the hollow people they had become, was untenable. After 3 months of these dispatches, on a brittle November day, I wrote back. 2 lines. Me. I'm having coffee at the Oyster Bar in Grand Central. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. If you wish to join me. I will be at the last table on the right. No expectations. I didn't know if they'd come. Part of me hoped they wouldn't. It would be easier to let the chasm remain. To let them be cautionary tales in my past rather than complicated people in my present. But at 9:58 the next morning, I saw them. They stood at the top of the stairs, hesitant, clutching each other's hands like children on the first day of school. They looked older, softer somehow. The armor of their social certainty was gone. They looked ordinary, vulnerable. They made their way through the crowded restaurant. Every step seemed to cost them. They stopped at my table. "Clara," my father said. His voice rough. "Hello," I said. I didn't stand up. I didn't smile. I gestured to the empty chairs. "Sit." They sat, perching on the edges, as if ready to flee. An awful silence descended. The cheerful clatter of the restaurant around us felt obscene, and my mother's eyes were fixed on my face, drinking me in with a painful intensity. "You look well," she finally managed. "I am," I said. It was true. Another silence. My father cleared his throat. The new venture. Interval. "It's a good name, thank you. He began, then stopped, his jaw working. He looked down at his hands, clenched on the table. There are no words. "Clara, sorry is a pebble thrown into a canyon. It makes no sound. What we did, or our blindness, our cowardice, it is unforgivable. We know that. My mother nodded, tears welling but not falling. "We are not asking for forgiveness. We are here to acknowledge you, to see you, to say that the daughter we failed is a woman of astonishing courage and strength. And that we are so profoundly, irredeemably proud to be your parents. Even though we have forfeited the right to call ourselves that." The words, so clearly practiced, so painfully sincere, hung between us. They weren't asking for anything. They were offering a statement of fact, an acknowledgement of the new reality. I looked at them. These two people who had given me life, who had shaped me, who had broken me, and who were now sitting before me, shattered themselves. The anger was gone. The ice had melted. What was left was a vast, quiet sadness, and a flicker of something else. Not love as it was, but the ghost of its possibility, weathered and changed. "I'm working on a project," I said, changing the subject, my voice surprisingly steady, "for a shelter. For women leaving dangerous situations. It's good work." Their relief was palpable. "A safe topic. A bridge made of practicalities. That's wonderful," my mother said, her voice thick. You always had such a good eye for making spaces feel safe." We talked for 20 minutes. About the loft. About the Brooklyn neighborhood. About my father terrible painting. It was stilted, polite, utterly superficial. And it was enough. It was a first, tremulous line drawn on a new map. We would never have what we had before. That was gone, burned to ash. But we could have this, occasional coffee, careful conversation, a distant, respectful affection born not of obligation, but of a hard one. Mutual understanding of the damage we had all sustained and inflicted. When the coffee was gone, I stood. They stood with me. "Thank you for coming," I said. My father reached out, then stopped, his hand hovering in the air, an aborted gesture towards a hug. He let it fall. "Thank you for letting us." My mother just nodded, her eyes shining. I turned and walked away, up the stairs, back into the rushing current of the terminal. I didn't look back. I felt lighter. Not happy. Not healed. But unburdened. I had faced them. I had seen their brokenness. And they had seen my wholeness. And we had all survived the seeing. The shelter project consumed me. It was the perfect antidote to the cerebral, luxury-focused work of my past. This was design as armor, as solace. We chose colors that were calming but not infantilizing. Fabrics that were durable, soft, and easy to clean. We designed layouts that offered both community and absolute privacy, with multiple exit strategies from every room. We installed lighting that was warm and flattering, a small but profound act of dignity for women who had been made to feel invisible. We created a children's play area that was a riot of color and texture, a place for joy to be rehearsed. However, tentatively, one afternoon, deep in the selection of art, we were choosing pieces that suggested strength, growth, and shelter. Mia's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then at me, her expression inscrutable. "What?" I asked, holding up two prints. One of a resilient, gnarled tree, another of a calm, deep sea. It's Ethan. He's been doing his thing. Quietly. A hobby. A cold trickle of apprehension. His thing, following the money. The rest of the money. Mark's settlement to you was huge. But Ethan had a hunch. He thought a guy like Mark, who hired a guy like Stern, wouldn't have put all his eggs in one basket. That there would be other ventures. Other people he'd screwed over. I put the prints down. And he was right. Mark's private equity fund. It wasn't just aggressive. It was predatory. Ethically dubious deals. Forced bankruptcies of family companies. Hidden fees. Ethan found a trail. He compiled a dossier. He just sent it to the SEC, the FTC, and the Wall Street Journal. Anonymously. Of course. I stared at her. Mark, who had tried to ruin me to protect his wealth, was now going to lose the rest of it. And his reputation. In a very public, very different kind of firestorm. Not because of me, but because of his own ingrained corruption. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. He'll know it was me. I said quietly. He'll suspect. He'll have no proof. And he'll be too busy fighting for his life to care. Mia shrugged. Consider it a closing of the circle. From a very discreet friend. I thought of Leopold Stern's last message. The board is larger than you perceive. He was right. I had only seen my small square of it. But Ethan, in his way, had seen more. And with a few keystrokes, he had shifted the whole board. Not for revenge, but for a messy, imperfect justice that reached beyond my own story. I picked up the print of the deep, calm sea. This one, I said. It feels like a beginning. Winter settled over the city, and the loft began to feel like home. The shelter project was nearing completion, a tangible good in the world that I had helped create. Inquiries for Interval were picking up. Now from a different kind of client, young tech founders who wanted humane offices, writers who needed nurturing spaces to work, a couple who had adopted 3 siblings from foster care and needed a home that could hold both chaos and peace. The work was meaningful. It fed me. On a cold, bright Saturday in January, I was alone in the loft. Mia was visiting her family in New Jersey. I was at my desk, sketching ideas for a sunroom addition for the Foster family, when a notification popped up on my screen. A security alert from the building. A package required a signature. I went downstairs. The deliveryman handed me a small, flat, rectangular box, wrapped in plain brown paper. My name and address were typed on a label. No return address. My heart, foolishly, did a little stutter. But the fear was a faint echo. I was no longer the woman who jumped at shadows. I took it upstairs, placed it on the work table, and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a simple black picture frame, and inside the frame was a single sheet of thick, creamy paper. On it, in elegant, precise calligraphy, was a quote: "The world breaks everyone. And afterward, some are strong at the broken places." Ernest Hemingway. There was no signature. But I knew. It was from my parents. A message. Not of apology, but of recognition. They saw the breaks. They saw the strength. It was their way of saying they were finally, truly, looking. I placed the framed quote on the bookshelf, next to a seashell from Tulum and the first sketch I'd made for the shelter. A small altar to survival. That evening, I met Mia for dinner at a tiny, loud Italian place in our neighborhood. We drank too much red wine and argued passionately about tile choices for a new project. It was normal. Gloriously, boringly normal. As we walked back to the loft, our breath-making plumes in the icy air, Mia looped her arm through mine. "You're okay. You know that," she said, her words slightly slurred with wine and contentment. "I'm getting there," I said. And for the first time, I believed it completely. Back home, I stood at the large window, looking out at the glittering necklace of lights on the bridges spanning the East River. The city was a living thing, vast and unconcerned, full of millions of stories of heartbreak and resilience. Mine was just one, a sharp, painful, transformative chapter. I thought of the woman I was a year ago, living in a beautiful, empty apartment, nursing the quiet wounds of a failed marriage, playing a role in a family drama whose script I hadn't read. That woman was gone, forged in the fire of a public betrayal and tempered in the quiet work of rebuilding. Someone else had emerged. I was Clara Thorne. I had been broken. I had been betrayed. I had fought back. I had lost a family and found a true one. I had traded a gilded cage for a raw loft with a view of the water. I had exchanged designing palaces of privilege for crafting sanctuaries of peace. The past was a country I had left. The future was an open sky, cold and clear and full of possibility. I turned away from the window, clicked off the light, and walked into the comforting darkness of my new home. The space I had made, the interval I had claimed. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was mine. The end.